Chapter 1203. A mere Qin Feiyang was able to scare you to this extent. With just this bit of courage, are you worthy of following this nation preceptor? The imperial tutor snorted coldly. Before coming, Yan Wei had already made a request. Yan Wei panicked and hurriedly knelt on the ground, saying, "I know I was wrong, I will definitely change." The imperial tutor glanced at him indifferently, then glanced at the void, opened a portal, and left with a belly full of anger. Yan Wei's eyes flashed, and he hurriedly got up and chased after him. At the same time, above a certain lake, a space-divine object was hidden in the void and swept across. Inside the space-divine object, Qin Feiyang, Lu Hong, and Lu Xingchen stood side by side. Previously, after saving Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong in the Black Dragon Swamp, Lu Xingchen immediately left in the space-divine object. Although he was not afraid of the imperial tutor now, because of his identity, he did not want to meet the imperial tutor too early. "Stop!" Qin Feiyang suddenly stretched out his hand. The scene in the void in front of him immediately froze in the sky above a mountain. This meant that the space-divine object had stopped. "You owe me another favor." Lu Xingchen looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. Qin Feiyang said, "Speaking of favors, it seems that you also owe me a lot. Back then, I spared Feng Wuxia, Wan Qiu, and the others a few times. You actually still remember?" Lu Xingchen shook his head and smiled helplessly. "How can I forget a favor? Besides, it's a favor you owe me. But I'm wondering, where exactly is Wan Qiu now?" Qin Feiyang said. Last time, he specifically asked the commander of the Kirin army to look for Wan Qiu, but the result was to no avail. "You should be able to guess." Lu Xingchen did not answer directly. "As expected, it's hidden in your spatial divine item." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly, glanced at the secret room in front of him, and said, "I remember you said that this secret room is only a part of your spatial divine item?" "Yes." Lu Xingchen nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Then are you interested in taking me to other places?" Lu Xingchen smiled and said, "I don't think there's a need for that, because you've seen it before and even entered it." "You have?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Lu Xingchen said, "That's right. Do you remember the valley you found in the Desert of Death?" Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. It turned out that the valley was a spatial divine object. "Since we're working together now, can you tell me if you've subdued anyone else other than Dong Qing, Zhang Jin, and Wan Qiu?" Qin Feiyang said. "There is. And they're all people you know. But you can only guess who they are. Don't say that I'm not sincere. After all, I didn't see your sincerity either." Lu Xingchen chuckled. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he said indifferently, "Okay, I didn't ask. Send us out." "Okay. But before we leave, I want to tell you something. Have you heard of the Sea of Reincarnation?" Lu Xingchen said. "The Sea of Reincarnation." Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled, and a trace of fear crawled up his face. "It seems that you've heard of it. If you're interested, you can go there. I promise you won't go in vain." After saying that, Lu Xingchen waved his hand and directly sent Qin Feiyang out. Then, he drove the spatial divine item and disappeared at the end of the mountain range without looking back. Lu Hong glanced at the void and said telepathically, "What kind of place is the Sea of Reincarnation?" "The Sea of Reincarnation is the most terrifying forbidden area of the Great Qin Empire. It's located in the extreme north of the imperial capital. It's said that even the gods don't dare to set foot there." Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. When he was young, he had read about the Sea of Reincarnation in an ancient history book. It was a very terrifying place. But he didn't expect Lu Xingchen to suddenly mention this place. What exactly was hidden in the Sea of Reincarnation? He knew Lu Xingchen well. It was impossible for him to just say it casually. There must be some kind of factor or conspiracy. "Are you kidding?" Even the gods don't dare to set foot there. Isn't that a bit too exaggerated? Lu Hong was surprised. I've never been there, so I don't know the specific situation. But when I was young, someone repeatedly warned me that I could go anywhere except the Sea of Reincarnation. Qin Feiyang said. Who? Lu Hong asked. The current emperor. Qin Feiyang said. Lu Hong's pupils constricted. What kind of person was the current emperor? To be able to say such words was enough to prove that the Sea of Reincarnation was indeed extraordinary. Do you think I should go? Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Hong and asked. It's best not to go. Because with Lu Xingqian's character, he definitely won't let you take advantage of him. There must be a conspiracy. Lu Hong said. That's what I thought. But I really have to make a trip because I want to see what tricks he's playing. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Lu Hong rolled her eyes at him and said helplessly, you know that there are tigers in the mountain, but you still want to go there. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and said, but before we go, we have to make a trip to the treasure pavilion first. With that, he took out 2 illusory form pills. Buzz. At this moment, the image crystal rang. Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal, and Fatso's shadow appeared. Fatso pursed his lips and said, your cousin is looking for you. Cousin? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and turned off the image crystal. With a wave of his hand, Lu Zheng appeared out of thin air. He has to send a message to you first. I've never seen such a troublesome space divine object. As soon as Lu Zheng appeared, he began to complain, his eyes full of disdain for the castle. Qin Feiyang was surprised and said, you mean you've seen a lot of space divine objects? Lu Zheng was taken aback and waved his hand. It's not as exaggerated as you say, but I've seen space divine objects. Where have you seen them? Qin Feiyang's eyes sparkled. Don't look at me like that. Even if I give you a space divine object, you may not dare to accept it. Lu Zheng joked. Why don't you give it a try? Qin Feiyang provoked. Lu Zheng chuckled and said playfully, is that so? What if I say that the owner of this space divine object is your grandfather? My grandfather also has a space divine object. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Lu Zheng said proudly, what's so great about a space divine object? Let me tell you, I even have a divine object, Lu Zheng. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. This was greatly beyond his expectations. He said in surprise, really? Of course, why do you think the emperors of the past were so afraid of the Lu family? I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. If it weren't for the existence of the Lu family, you and your mother, who is my aunt, would have already gone to hell. Lu Zheng smiled coldly and arrogantly. Qin Feiyang sucked in a breath of cold air. He never expected that the foundation of his grandfather's family was so terrifying. But there was another problem. Since the Lu family was so strong, why didn't they dare to enter the imperial city openly? What kind of secret was hidden in this? Lu Zheng glanced at him and said indifferently, don't think about it. There are some things that you will never think of in your lifetime. Huff. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. He asked, why are you looking for me? Lu Zheng chuckled and said, aren't you going to the imperial city? I happen to want to go shopping too. I'm not going to play. Qin Feiyang frowned. You do your thing, and I'll play mine. What's the matter? Lu Zheng asked back. Qin Feiyang shrugged helplessly. He took a phantom pill and gave the other to Lu Hong. Qin Feiyang disguised himself as a thin and sickly young man. Lu Hong only changed her facial features slightly, but she still looked so charming. Lu Zheng touched his chin and looked at Lu Hong with a frivolous look. He said with a smirk, you're not a particularly charming woman, but why do I like you more and more? Hooligan. Of course, Lu Hong didn't look happy. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and took out a phantom pill. He looked at Lu Zheng and said, "Do you need it?" "Of course. Although I rarely go to the Imperial City, some old monsters in the Imperial City still know me. After all, I'm young, rich, and talented. I can't keep a low profile even if I want to." Lu Zheng snatched the phantom pill and threw it into his mouth. "Idiot, right?" Lu Hong rolled her eyes. Lu Zheng suddenly felt wronged and said, "Am I so unbearable in your heart? I'm so sad. Get lost." Lu Hong's face darkened. Didn't this bastard have a serious moment? Lu Zheng chuckled. The next moment, he turned into a devilish young man, wearing a purple robe. His skin was as white as jade, and his long purple hair was extremely flamboyant. Moreover, he also took out a folding fan from his Qinquan bag and waved it leisurely. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng, he said with an evil smile, "How about it? Am I handsome now?" Lu Hong looked him up and down and said seriously, "Put on some makeup, wear a dress, and tie a ponytail. You'll definitely be more handsome." The smile on Lu Zheng's face suddenly froze. Wasn't she saying that he was a sissy? "I didn't expect a little girl like you to have such a sharp tongue. But I like it. Are you ready?" Lu Zheng said. "Ready for what?" Lu Hong didn't understand. Lu Zheng said with an evil smile, "Ready to accept my bombardment of pursuit. Don't be narcissistic. Even if I become a nun, I won't like a man like you." Lu Hong snorted coldly. "It's okay. If you become a nun, I'll become a monk. Then we'll be more compatible." Lu Zheng smiled evilly. Lu Hong was mad. How could this person be so shameless? Looking at the two of them bickering, Qin Feiyang's lips curled into a meaningful smile. If Lu Zheng really liked Lu Hong, then this could be considered a good thing. After all, Lu Zheng, whether it was his family background or his own conditions, was completely compatible with Lu Hong. However, was Lu Zheng joking, or was he really interested? It still needed to be confirmed. Buzz. He waved his hand and opened the portal. Looking at the two of them, he said with a faint smile, "Let's go." After that, he took the lead and stepped into the portal. "I'm telling you, stop fooling around." Lu Hong glared fiercely at Lu Zheng, then turned and followed him in. She said this because she was worried that Qin Feiyang would misunderstand. Because there was only one person in her heart, and that was Qin Feiyang. Fooling around? Lu Zheng gave an enigmatic smile and stepped into the portal as well. Empire City. The first district could be said to be the most prosperous district in Empire City. That was because there were countless wealthy and influential people gathered here. Chapter 1204. Precious Treasure Pavilion was undoubtedly the most bustling place in the first district. For black-robed guards stood upright on both sides of the entrance, watching the people entering and exiting with eagle-like eyes that were extremely sharp. They were in charge of maintaining the order of Precious Treasure Pavilion and could not be distracted at any time. In front of the entrance. On the streets. More than 10 young men and women walked side by side. The men had a heroic aura. The women were young and beautiful. They wore bright and beautiful clothes and exuded an extraordinary aura. It was obvious that they were from wealthy families. A black-robed young man smiled. "Brother Haolong, I didn't expect that you would come to Precious Treasure Pavilion as well. I didn't want to come either. Fei was the one who dragged me here." The person called Brother Haolong shook his head helplessly. He was 7 feet tall. He wore a luxurious purple robe. His features were handsome and his black hair was like a waterfall. He was rather handsome, but there was arrogance between his brows. Walking with this person was a young woman in her prime. She was also wearing a luxurious purple dress. She was quite pretty. However, her pretentious appearance made one feel uncomfortable. The two of them held hands intimately and looked like a pair of lovers. Brother Haolong, Sister Feifei, the two of you are truly a match made in heaven. A white-robed young man at the side smiled and the flattery in his words was clear. Of course. In the entire capital, who else is worthy of Feifei other than me? The purple-robed young man said proudly. That's right, that's right. Brother Haolong is handsome and extremely talented. He's an unparalleled talent of the capital. Most importantly, Brother Haolong has a strong brother who is known as the #1 monster incarnate of the capital. We can never compare to him. The group of young men and women laughed. The purple-robed young man had a proud expression and enjoyed the feeling of superiority. How shameless. However, the group of people did not notice that there were two men and a woman behind them. One of them had a sickly face and was extremely weak. The other was devilish and eye-catching. The remaining woman had a picturesque appearance and her clothes fluttered, making one want to take a few more glances. That was right. They were Qin Feiyang, Lu Zheng, and Lu Hong. After entering the first district, they followed the group of people in front of them and walked towards the treasure pavilion. At first, they didn't care. But when he heard their conversation, it turned out that they were a group of rich playboys. Actually, being a silk pants wasn't a big deal because there was no lack of silk pants in Imperial City. But, as a silk pants, not only did he not know his own limits, he even took pride in it and was immensely complacent. This made people feel disgusted. Therefore, Lu Hong could not help but mutter, her eyes filled with disgust. Just get used to it. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. It's not a matter of habit. It's a matter of principle. Look at them. Each and every one of them is ignorant and incompetent, arrogant and lascivious. They still think they're so great. It's disgusting to look at them. Lu Hong snorted coldly. I also dislike those people. However, little cousin, this man called Haolong has some grudges with you. Lu Zheng snickered. Grudges? Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at him suspiciously. Lu Zheng said with a smile, he's from the Zhuge family. His full name is Zhuge Haolong. He's Zhuge Mingyang's cousin. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. What do you think? Do you have an urge to beat him up? Lu Zheng smirked. Beat him up. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He's just a clown. He can't arouse my interest. If it was Zhuge Mingyang, it would be a different story. You're not interested, but I am. Lu Zheng chuckled and shook his head with a sigh. They're all marquis descendants, but they're all licking their faces to curry favor with others. How pathetic. His voice was not loud, but it could clearly reach the ears of Zhuge Haolong and the others. The group of people was stunned. They turned to look at Lu Zheng and did not pay much attention to him. They thought that Lu Zheng was talking about someone else. Qin Feiyang and Zhuge Haolong were also very dissatisfied with Lu Zheng's actions. Lu Hong furrowed her beautiful brows and said unhappily, you came all the way here just to make trouble for us. This is considered trouble. You think too highly of them. Lu Zheng said disdainfully. You're very arrogant, aren't you? Lu Hong said with a dark face. In this situation, it was naturally best to keep a low profile as much as possible. Because if they caused any big trouble, it would not benefit them at all. Seeing that Lu Hong was really angry, Lu Zheng quickly smiled apologetically and said, okay. I'm being nosy. I won't cause trouble anymore, okay? Don't be angry. Look, you look so ugly when you're angry. Don't look if it's ugly. Lu Hong turned her head and snorted. This, Lu Zheng was stunned. What did he say wrong again? Qin Feiyang coughed and said telepathically, women are very sensitive to the word ugly. I see. Lu Zheng suddenly understood. Qin Feiyang said in amusement, your EQ is not good. You have to learn more from others. Humph. You speak as if you're very good. If you were really good, you wouldn't still be single now. Lu Jing said disdainfully. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked quite embarrassed. It seemed that his EQ was not very good either. Brother Haolong, wait. Suddenly, there was a loud shout. A young man in brocade ran over from behind. Get lost. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two in front of him, he did not say anything about bypassing them. He shouted arrogantly and directly reached out to push Lu Hong and Lu Jing away. Caught off guard, Lu Hong and Lu Jing fell to the ground on the spot, looking very embarrassed. Haven't you heard that a good dog doesn't block the way? But in this regard, the young man in brocade did not apologize at all. Instead, he looked at Lu Hong and Lu Jing arrogantly and shouted. Then, the young man in brocade swaggered toward Zhuge Haolong and the others without looking back. My bad temper, Lu Jing was immediately angry. He got up from the ground, rolled up his sleeves, and walked angrily toward the young man in brocade. Lu Hong got up and pulled him. How can you tolerate this? Lu Jing raised his eyebrows. Lu Hong tidied up her dress and hair, glanced at the young man in brocade, and said lightly, if we bite back after being bitten by a dog, what's the difference between us and a dog? This, Lu Jing was stunned and laughed. Hong is right. We can't be dogs that bite people. Who are you calling a dog? The young man in brocade suddenly turned around and stared fiercely at Lu Jing and Lu Hong. Zhuge Haolong and the others had already stopped when they heard the young man in brocade, so they also heard it. They looked at Lu Hong and Lu Jing with a trace of hostility in their eyes. What's going on? The pedestrians on the street also stopped and surrounded them, looking at the two groups of people suspiciously. You're still angry? Lu Jing raised his eyebrows. I told you not to be a dog that bites people. Let's go. Lu Hong said lightly and continued to walk toward the treasure pavilion. For my lifelong happiness, I'll tolerate it. Lu Jing clenched his fists and chased after Lu Hong. Qin Feiyang was like a bystander from beginning to end, remaining silent. However, they didn't want to cause trouble, but it didn't mean that others wouldn't either. Just as the three of them walked in front of Zhuge Haolong and the others and were about to go around them, Zhuge Haolong's eyes turned cold. He stood in front of the three of them and said, Did I say you can leave? At the same time, the others also spread out and surrounded Qin Feiyang's group of three, all of them sneering endlessly. You're taking advantage of us. Lu Jing was irritable. Lu Hong reached out to stop him. She looked at Zhuge Haolong patiently and asked, Then what do you want? Zhuge Haolong waved at the young man in brocade. How you, come here. The young man in brocade walked to Zhuge Haolong's side and crossed his arms. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, the sarcasm on his face undisguised. Zhuge Haolong said, Do you know who he is? Lu Hong said, I'm new here. I really don't know who he is. Zhuge Haolong said, Then listen carefully. He's called Zhuge Haoyu, my younger brother. Zhuge Haolong? Zhuge Haoyu? Who are they? So impressive? Someone in the crowd asked softly. You don't even know them. Are you from the countryside? Well, it's my first time in Imperial City. No wonder. Let me tell you, they are people you can't afford to offend. Have you heard of Zhuge Wuho? I've definitely heard of him. Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu's father is Zhuge Wuho's younger brother. In other words, these two brothers are the direct descendants of the Zhuge family. With such a powerful family background, how can they not be impressive? Even if they kill people on the street, no one will dare to do anything to them. Do you understand? If that's the case, won't those three be in trouble? Nonsense. Those who dare to offend the Zhuge family will lose a layer of skin even if they don't die. But they didn't do anything wrong. They've been tolerating. Isn't this too unfair to them? Young man, you're too young. In Imperial City, there's no such thing as fair or unfair. There's only power. That's right. For commoners like us, it's best to tuck our tails between our legs. These discussions were very soft. They were afraid that Zhuge Haolong's group would hear it and bring harm to themselves. But Qin Feiyang and the other two could hear it clearly. Because their cultivation was much stronger than Zhuge Haolong's group. The strongest in Zhuge Haolong's group was only a 1-star combat emperor. The weakest was only a 5-star combat king. They naturally didn't put such a small character in their eyes. Lu Hong smiled and said, "So they're from the Zhuge family. But I heard that Zhuge Wuhou is a righteous and respected person. But how can his descendants be a group of dogs that bite people? She's actually humiliating Zhuge Haolong. Is she really not afraid of death? This Zhuge Haolong is relying on the power of the martial marquis government. He can do anything. Yeah, he used to do evil in Imperial City. He bullied people and women. And I also heard that Zhuge Mingyang took good care of him. Zhuge Mingyang is the #1 monster in the Imperial City. Even the Imperial Master and His Majesty think highly of him. Who dares to offend such a person?" The people murmured and looked at Lu Hong in disbelief. Chapter 1205. Zhuge Mingyang, Qin Feiyang muttered. Zhuge Mingyang had indeed contributed greatly to the Zhuge family's current status. In the past, Zhuge Wuhou and the other Wuhou had similar statuses. But because of the birth of Zhuge Mingyang, this peerless talent, Zhuge Wuhou's status in the imperial capital slowly surpassed the other Wuhou. As the saying goes, a mother's status depends on her son. And now, this saying was very suitable for Zhuge Wuhou. Say it again if you have the guts. Towards Lu Hong's repeated humiliations, Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu's eyes were filled with killing intent. Lu Hong said indifferently, "I'm not in the mood to talk nonsense with dogs, scram. You're courting death." Zhuge Haolong's gaze turned cold as he slapped towards Lu Hong. Slap. However, Lu Hong was one step ahead of him. She slapped Zhuge Haolong's face solidly. A blood-red palm print immediately appeared on Zhuge Haolong's face. You dare to hit me?" Zhuge Haolong was stunned. He touched his burning face and looked at Lu Hong in disbelief. Zhuge Haoyu, the purple-clothed lady, and the surrounding crowd were all dumbfounded. The Zhuge family could be said to be like the sun in the sky, and there was actually someone who dared to hit a direct descendant of the Zhuge family on the streets. Was she crazy? This was no longer Zhuge Haolong's personal problem, but the entire Zhuge family's face. Hitting you is considered light. Don't provoke me again. It's not a problem to kill you if you deny it. Scram, don't block the way. Lu Hong released her aura, and Zhuge Haolong and the rest who were blocking in front were instantly thrown off their feet and rolled on the ground in a sorry state. Then, Lu Hong walked towards the treasure pavilion without looking back. Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng looked at each other and smiled, then slowly followed. All these years, Lu Hong had been cultivating in seclusion day and night. Not only had she opened the door of potential, she had also stepped into the Battle Saint realm. Naturally, she wouldn't take Zhuge Haolong and the other rich playboys seriously. After all, Battle Saints and Battle Emperors were people from two different worlds. One was heaven, one was earth. Stop. But at this moment, a shy and angry shout rang out. The purple-clothed woman crawled up from the ground. Her face was both green and red. She was also the daughter of a martial marquis and had a precious body. Normally, she was like the moon surrounded by stars, so when had she ever suffered such humiliation? Moreover, it was done in public. That was why she was angry. However, Lu Hong turned a deaf ear. Zhuge Haolong, is this all you've got? You don't care that I'm being bullied? The purple-clothed woman was furious and vented her anger on Zhuge Haolong. Men were all prideful. Not to mention Zhuge Haolong, a hedonistic son of rich parents. Hearing the purple-robed woman's words, he suddenly became hot-headed and took out a dagger from his qianquan bag, stabbing it towards Lu Hong. Still not done. Lu Jing raised his eyebrows. I don't need you to interfere. Lu Hong looked at him coldly and suddenly turned around. With a step, she landed in front of Zhuge Haolong and easily dodged the dagger. Her jade-like hand shot out. Slap. A loud slap immediately rang out. Ah! Zhuge Haolong let out a miserable howl and crashed into the crowd behind him like a meteorite. His entire face was deformed. The teeth in his mouth were smashed into pieces by Lu Hong's slap. He covered his mouth as blood flowed out and rolled on the ground in pain. The purple-clothed woman and the others were dumbfounded. Zhuge Haolong was not only a direct descendant of the Zhuge family, but also Zhuge Mingyang's cousin. She actually dared to be so heavy-handed. Was she not afraid of the Zhuge family's revenge? Lu Hong smiled coldly. Revenge? No one could deny that the Zhuge family was strong, but they were not ordinary people either. They were not even afraid of the imperial tutor and the emperor, let alone the Zhuge family. Lu Hong looked at the purple-clothed woman and said indifferently, such a useless man, and you're still with him. What kind of taste do you have? It's none of your business. The purple-clothed woman stammered, her eyes filled with fear. It's true that it's none of my business. After all, you're not a good person either. Lu Hong smiled disdainfully and turned around, leaving the purple-clothed woman with a proud back view. I'm not a good person. The purple-clothed woman immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. Like a shrew, she shouted hysterically, Who are you? If you have the ability, tell me your name. You don't deserve to know my name. Lu Hong said without turning her head. The purple-clothed woman was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She was the daughter of a marquis. Her status was so high that ordinary people could not reach her. She actually said that she did not deserve to know. Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to show off in front of me? The purple-clothed woman was flustered and exasperated. My qualifications are my strength. If you're not convinced, you can come and fight with me. Lu Hong turned around and looked at her, her eyes filled with a confident smile. The purple-clothed woman was stunned. Her cultivation was not even comparable to Zhuge Haolong. How could she be a match for this person? If you don't have the guts, then don't shout. This will only make you more embarrassed. Lu Hong snorted. When she turned around, she suddenly looked at Zhuge Haoyu and sneered, a silk pants like you, won't it be a pity to kill you? After she said that, she raised her hand and pointed in the air. A ray of battle chi burst out and directly entered Zhuge Haoyu's lower abdomen. Ah! Zhuge Haoyu immediately fell to the ground, holding his lower abdomen and howling miserably. Seeing this scene, the surrounding spectators all sucked in a breath of cold air. Not to mention injuring Zhuge Haolong, she even crippled Zhuge Haoyu. This woman really ate the guts of a leopard. The purple-clothed woman and the group of silk pants all retreated in fear, not daring to speak again. Actually, this kind of method was nothing at all. Just like Qin Feiyang, who had been tempered by blood and fire since young, this kind of thing to him was just a small matter. But the purple-clothed woman and the others were different. As the children of Marquis, they usually lived in luxury and were spoiled. No matter where they went, they would be surrounded by people. When had they ever seen such a scene? So they were scared out of their wits. They are both noble children, but why is there such a big difference between them and Qin Feiyang? Looking at the group of cowardly and incompetent performance, Lu Hong shook her head and muttered to herself. Then, she turned and walked towards Qin Feiyang. Lu Jing went up and laughed, Hong, you are really too cool. I realize that I have really fallen in love with you. Lu Hong frowned. Do you fall in love with everyone you see? Otherwise, why would the word love come out of your mouth? In all honesty, I have only said this to you. I just don't like to hide it, so I will say what I want to say. Lu Zheng said. Don't give me that. Lu Hong rolled her eyes at him, walked in front of Qin Feiyang, and whispered, You won't blame me, right? How dare he? You are his future sister-in-law. If he dares to blame you, I will smack his butt. Lu Zheng snorted coldly. Shut up. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong glared at him at the same time. Their eyes were extremely ferocious. Lu Zheng smiled embarrassedly and tactfully kept his mouth shut. Otherwise, he would cause public outrage. Qin Feiyang was quite helpless towards Lu Zheng. Although he was not serious, he was still his cousin no matter what. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Hong and said with a sullen face, I must blame you because you went too easy on him. Ah! Lu Zheng was stunned. Lu Hong was stunned. The people around were also petrified on the spot. Are you kidding me? Didn't you see that Zhuge Haolong's face was deformed? Didn't you see that Zhuge Haoyu was crippled? You call that going too easy on him? What if you were in his shoes? What would you do? Kill him directly? Do you dare? After all, the other party was from the Zhuge family. Therefore, everyone was speechless. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled and left with the two of them. The Zhenbao Pavilion was not far from here. It was only a few dozen meters away. When they reached the front door, the three of them entered the Zhenbao Pavilion without looking back. The four guards in front of the door looked at the three of them and swallowed their saliva. They even dared to beat up a descendant of the Zhuge family. Either it was their first time in the imperial city and they were like newborn calves who were not afraid of tigers, or their background was not simple. Brother Haolong, Brother Haoyu, are you all right? When Qin Feiyang and the other two entered the Zhenbao Pavilion, the group of rich kids immediately rushed forward and helped the two of them up. I'm fine. Zhuge Haolong waved his hand and stared at the door of the Zhenbao Pavilion. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Humph. The woman in purple snorted coldly and turned to leave. A young man in white hurriedly said, Sister Feifei, where are you going? Brother Haolong is injured because of you. Aren't you going to comfort him? That's because he's useless. Also, don't look for me in the future. I, Wang Feifei, don't need a useless man like you. The woman in purple said coldly and quickly disappeared into the crowd. Stupid woman, I swear that I will make you pay the price. This time. Zhuge Haolong hated Lu Hong even more. He opened a teleportation door and walked in with a gloomy face with Zhuge Haoyu. What should we do? The rest of the people looked at each other. After being humiliated so badly, Zhuge Haolong will definitely not let it go. Let's go to the Zhenbao Pavilion first. There will be a good show later. That makes sense. The group of people looked at each other and smiled. They then rushed to the Zhenbao Pavilion. Although they were all complimenting Zhuge Haolong on the surface, they were all hiding something in their hearts. To put it bluntly, they were just pretending to obey. Young masters, young mistress, what do you need? In the Zhenbao Pavilion. A woman in red walked in front of Qin Feiyang and the other two and asked politely with a smile. The people in the Zhenbao Pavilion also knew about what happened outside. They looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two with curiosity. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I want to see Sun Dehai. Sun Dehai was the manager here, commonly known as Elder Sunday. The woman in red was stunned. They wanted to see the manager as soon as they entered. Could it be that these three people really had a big background? But she more or less knew a little about the rich and powerful disciples in the imperial city. She didn't seem to know these three people in front of her. Then please wait for a moment. I will go and ask Elder Sun to come out. But she didn't ask more. She bowed to Qin Feiyang and the other two and turned to leave quickly. Qin Feiyang and the other two also strolled around the hall. The items sold in the hall were basically very ordinary things. But sometimes, if one was lucky, they would encounter one or two valuable treasures. Come over and take a look. This thing looks very strange. What is it? Suddenly. Chapter 1206. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and walked over curiously. It's them. Get out of the way. Seeing the three of them coming, the crowd immediately retreated to the sides. They even dared to beat up the people of the Zhuge family. What else did they not dare to do? Therefore, everyone was very scared. The three of them walked to a counter casually. The counter was made of transparent glass. They could clearly see that there was a jade box inside. The jade box was the size of an adult's palm. It was very ordinary and simple. And in the jade box, there was a colorful fruit. The fruit was about the size of an egg. It was bright and colorful, but because the counter was closed, there was no fruit fragrance. What is this? I've never seen it before. I've never seen it before, but it looks delicious. Someone whispered beside him. Why does it look familiar? Suddenly, a murmur sounded. Everyone looked over and found that it was Qin Feiyang who spoke. An old man with white hair asked curiously, "Little brother, do you know what this is?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Shouldn't you ask the staff here?" Behind the counter, a young woman stood. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, she apologized, "Young master, I'm sorry, we Treasure Pavilion don't know what this is." "Why are you selling it if you don't know?" Everyone was puzzled. "This fruit is not for sale. It's just for exhibition. But if anyone can recognize this fruit and tell us the truth, we Treasure Pavilion will reward you handsomely." The young woman smiled and said with a sweet smile. "Reward what?" Someone asked. 1 billion gold coins. The young woman said. Hearing this, everyone immediately stared at the fruit and racked their brains to remember. 1 billion gold coins, for Qin Feiyang, was just a small profit, but for most of the people here, it was a huge sum of money. So everyone wanted to get this reward. However, no matter how they thought, there was no information about this fruit in their memory. What is this? Lu Jing also lowered his head and pondered. I remember now. Lu Hong's eyes suddenly trembled. She transmitted her voice to Qin Feiyang, "Do you remember the 3 fruits you obtained in the Blue Sea?" His words awakened the dreamer. Qin Feiyang suddenly realized. That was right. Back in the Azure Sea, he had followed Wang Zicheng to an island and discovered a ruin. In the ruins, he found a jade box. The 3 fruits in the box were exactly the same as the one in front of him. I was already surprised that he couldn't find any information about this fruit, but I didn't expect that even the people of Precious Treasure Pavilion don't know about it. It seems that this fruit is truly extraordinary. Lu Hong thought to herself. Qin Feiyang nodded without leaving a trace. No matter what, he had to get this fruit today. May I ask which friend is looking for me? At this moment, an aged voice sounded, and a white-haired old man walked out from one of the doors. It was Sun Dehai. Qin Feiyang faintly smiled as he led Lu Hong and the other 2 to greet them. Sun Dehai glanced at the 3 of them, and his pupils shrank slightly. What a strong cultivation. He cupped his hands and smiled. May I ask who the 3 of you are? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Nameless juniors, not worth mentioning. Who are you kidding? Sun Dehai muttered secretly. They even dared to beat up the people of the Zhuge family. How could they be nameless juniors? But as the steward of Precious Treasure Pavilion in the first district, he naturally knew what to ask and what not to ask. He smiled slightly and asked politely, May I ask why you are looking for me? Qin Feiyang was about to speak, but suddenly there was a violent shout from outside. The woman who injured my 2 young masters, I give you 3 breaths to get out here. This voice was very hoarse and filled with a piercing chill. Judging from this voice, it seems to be the steward of the Zhuge family. The Zhuge family will not let this go. People started to discuss softly. The good-for-nothing young masters who were with Zhuge Haolong were also in the hall. When they heard the voice of the Zhuge family's steward, they looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and sneered. Lu Zheng said angrily, after beating up the young ones, the old ones are here. There is no end to this. I will go and take care of him. Sun Dehai's eyes flashed as he sent a telepathic message. The 3 of you, the Zhuge family is not to be trifled with. I suggest that we turn big problems into small ones, and small ones into nothing. Just them. Lu Zheng smiled disdainfully, turned around, and strode into Precious Treasure Pavilion. Interesting. Sun Dehai looked at Lu Zheng's back and then looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. He realized that there was no trace of nervousness on their faces, and this piqued his interest. Outside. An old man in black stood in the middle of the street. His gaze was arrogant and overbearing. Behind him stood a group of black-armored guards. There were a total of 15 of them, and all of them had arrogant postures. They were here to seek revenge, so the 2 victims, Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu, were naturally here as well. With the old man in black and a group of black-armored guards, the 2 of them were confident enough to flaunt their prowess and look down on everyone. Lu Zheng stepped out of the door and scanned the group of people. He sneered. You came really quickly. As an 8-star battle saint, he could see through the cultivation of these people at a glance. The old man in black, a 9-star battle saint. As a steward, one needed management ability, not cultivation. Therefore, the steward's cultivation was usually not very strong. As for the black-armored guards, their strength was between 8-star and 9-star battle saint. The old man in black shouted, cut the crap and hand over that bitch. Lu Zheng's face turned cold and he said, you'd best clean your mouth for me. Impudent. How dare you speak to me with such an attitude? Do you know who I am? The old man in black roared. The corner of Lu Zheng's mouth lifted. He said proudly, then do you know who I am? Although the Zhuge family was a feudal lord, it was not worth mentioning compared to his Lu family. Looks like you're not just arrogant. But let me tell you, if you don't hand over that woman, you can forget about leaving here today. The old man in black waved his hand, and the 15 black-armored guards immediately stepped forward and blocked the door of the treasure pavilion. With just you dregs? Lu Zheng chuckled. Your cultivation is very strong. Even I can't see through it, but so what? My Zhuge family doesn't lack powerhouses. As long as I send a message, a large number of powerhouses will immediately come to support us. At that time, it won't be as simple as just handing over that woman. You and the other person will die. So, you'd better be sensible. The old man in black sneered. The other person was naturally Qin Feiyang. Huh, Lu Zheng threw his head back and laughed. The old man in black's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He laughed sinisterly. Looks like you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Then, he took out an image crystal and prepared to call for reinforcements. Actually, before coming, he had asked Zhuge Haolong and Lu Zheng what their cultivation was. After all, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle. But with the pitiful strength of Zhuge Haolong and the other 2, how could they see through the cultivation of Qin Feiyang and the other 2? After thinking for a long time, they still couldn't figure it out. Seeing that they couldn't tell the other's cultivation, the old man in black asked about Qin Feiyang and the other 2's ages. Of course, Zhuge Haolong and Lu Zheng didn't know either. They only said that they were about the same age as them. This was indeed true. Let's not talk about Lu Zheng. Let's talk about Qin Feiyang first. Zhuge Mingyang was older than Qin Feiyang. And as Zhuge Mingyang's cousin, Zhuge Haolong and Qin Feiyang's age naturally wouldn't be too different. Knowing this, the old man in black was relieved. Sure. The other three were definitely not strong. Because they were too young. How strong could these three young people be? At most, they were battle masters. Therefore, he only brought a group of ordinary guards to avenge the humiliation of the two young masters. He originally thought that with his and the guard's strength, they could easily take down the other three. But when he saw it with his own eyes, he realized that he was very wrong. He couldn't see through their cultivation. They must be battle sages. But he wasn't worried at all. In his opinion, it wasn't too late to call for reinforcements now. He also didn't believe that the other party would really dare to kill them. He wasn't blindly confident. In the imperial capital, other than the current emperor, no one dared to touch the Zhuge family. Even the state preceptor and old Qin had to ask the emperor in advance if they wanted to touch the Zhuge family. However, he had greatly underestimated Lu Zheng's identity and methods. As a direct descendant of the Lu family, how could he be afraid of a mere Zhuge family? Not to mention killing a butler, even if he killed Zhuge Mingyang, the so-called number one demon, no one would dare to do anything to him. Whoosh! Just as the old man in black was recovering the image crystal, Lu Zheng swept to the front of the old man in black like a ghost. Be careful. The dozen or so guards were startled as they shouted. The old man in black's pupils shrank, and he immediately retreated in horror. But with his cultivation, how could he escape from Lu Zheng's palm? Lu Zheng grabbed his neck and said with a sinister smile, "There's no discussion about killing you. Go to hell and repent slowly." No, the old man in black roared in extreme panic. Crack. But at the same time, Lu Zheng squeezed his 5 fingers and directly broke the old man in black's neck. He died on the spot. What? He really killed him. Everyone was dumbfounded. This butler had followed Zhuge Wuho for many years and was deeply trusted by Zhuge Wuho. Although his status was not as high as those direct descendants, he was still an important figure in the Zhuge family. But this person actually killed him just like that. He was openly challenging the dignity of the Zhuge family. Zhuge Haolong, Zhuge Haoyu, and the group of guards were also dumbfounded. They did not expect this person to be so bold that he even dared to kill their butler. But just as everyone was shocked, Lu Zheng's gaze shifted to Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu. What does he want to do? Does he want to kill Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu too? Everyone was surprised. Lu Zheng grinned and said, "I spared your lives just now. You should cherish it." The two of them were so scared that their faces turned pale. Their bodies trembled, and there was even the smell of urine. "You guys pissed your pants." Lu Zheng was stunned. He looked at the crotch of the two of them and saw that there were indeed water stains. It was not their fault. Although their family background was not ordinary, their personal strength was not that great. Moreover, it was common knowledge that these good-for-nothing scums, although they always acted like tyrants, were actually cowards. Chapter 1207. Young Master Haolong, Young Master Haoyu, leave quickly. Seeing that the situation was not good, the 15 black-armored guards quickly rushed to the front of Zhuge Haolong and Haoyu. They stood in a row and stared at Lu Zheng as if they were facing a great enemy. As experienced guards, their foresight and temperament were naturally incomparable to Zhuge Haolong and Haoyu. Seeing that Lu Zheng directly killed the manager without even blinking, they realized that they had met a fierce person this time. And there was nothing that such a person could not do. Buzz! Zhuge Haolong immediately opened a portal, but the two of them did not enter. "Go in quickly." One of the guards urged impatiently. "We also want to go in, but our legs are not listening to us." Zhuge Haolong and Haoyu were so anxious that they were about to cry. You're so scared that your legs are weak. Lu Zheng was stunned. He shook his head and sneered. They were indeed useless. Damn it! The guard cursed. He turned and carried the two of them toward the portal. Swoosh! But suddenly, a figure appeared in front of the portal. It was Lu Zheng. So fast. The guard's expressions changed. Boom! Lu Zheng waved his hand, and the portal instantly shattered. Then, he pointed his index finger in the air. 15 battle auras appeared and disappeared between the eyebrows of the 15 guards at lightning speed. Ah! Accompanied by a series of screams, the 15 of them died on the spot. Don't kill us, I beg you, please spare us. Zhuge Haolong and Hao Yu were immediately paralyzed with fear. They knelt on the ground and begged endlessly. I can spare you, but you have to bark a few times and let me hear it. Lu Zheng teased. Woof! The two of them immediately barked like dogs, and the sound echoed throughout the entire street. The crowd burst into laughter. They did not expect that the dignified direct descendants of the Zhuge family would be so spineless. They immediately started barking like dogs when asked to. This was simply a disgrace to the Zhuge family. If old man Zhuge were to see you guys like this, he might die from anger. So, I might as well be a good person and send you to the afterlife. Lu Zheng smiled contemptuously. He waved his hand, and a wave of battle aura appeared and rushed toward the two of them. No, the two of them screamed miserably. But to no avail. The battle chi was like a terrifying blade, instantly engulfing the two of them. Blood splattered everywhere. Killed. Everyone was dumbfounded. The surroundings also fell into a dead silence. Killing the housekeeper and those guards was already beyond their imagination, but he actually killed Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haolong. This was too crazy. One had to know. Both of them were direct descendants. Their positions in the Zhuge family were much more important than that of the housekeeper. Did he know what he was doing? Did he know how big of a mistake he had made? But for this. Lu Zheng smiled indifferently and turned to enter the treasure pavilion. The moment they saw Lu Zheng enter, the people in the treasure pavilion all retreated to a corner, their eyes filled with fear. Those silk pants were even more terrified. They hid behind the crowd and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. This person even dared to kill Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu, let alone them. Walking in front of Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong, Lu Zheng chuckled and said, now no one will bother us. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong also smiled faintly. Sun Dehai's pupils constricted. They could still be so calm after killing the Zhuge family's people. Looking at the background of these three people, they were not ordinary people. Sun Dehai smiled and said, the three of you, why don't we go to the VIP room to talk? I just killed the Zhuge family's people, and you're bringing us to the VIP room. Aren't you afraid of the Zhuge family's revenge? Lu Zheng joked. Sun Dehai smiled and said, our treasure pavilion doesn't care about grudges. We only do business. Huh, Lu Zheng laughed loudly and said, then lead the way. On the second floor. VIP room. Sun Dehai pushed the door open and walked to the tea table. He stretched out his hand and said with a smile, the three of you, please take a seat. Qin Feiyang sat down and said with a faint smile, let's not talk about small talk. Let's get to the point. Sun Dehai was stunned. He was thinking about how to find out the identities of these three people, but he did not expect Qin Feiyang to see through him. Now, he was embarrassed to ask any more. Sun Dehai shook his head and said with a smile, little brother, you're a straightforward person. Alright, what do you need? Qin Feiyang said, a portal and medicinal materials for the battle chi pill. How much do you need? Sun Dehai asked. Qin Feiyang said, everything. What? Sun Dehai was petrified. He wondered if he had heard wrongly. Qin Feiyang said calmly, I want as much as you have in your treasure pavilion. I don't care about the price. I only have one request. Hurry. Lu Zheng had killed the butler and Zhuge Haolong. He would definitely enrage the Zhuge family. It would not be long before more people came, and they would not be ordinary people. Therefore, they had to leave Empire City as soon as possible. Are you sure you want everything? Sun Dehai still found it hard to accept. The treasure pavilion in the first district was the headquarters of the Great Qin Empire. Naturally, they had a lot of medicinal materials for portals and battle chi pills. Although the three people in front of him were powerful, it did not mean that they had a lot of money. Frankly speaking, he doubted whether the three of them had that much money. You're so annoying. Just go and prepare. Why are you asking so many questions? If you can't make the decision, get someone else to talk to us. Lu Zheng said impatiently. Sun Dehai looked at the three of them deeply and nodded. All right, I'll get someone to prepare it. Guards. The door opened and a guard walked in. Sun Dehai ordered, go and get all the portals and medicinal materials for the battle chi pill. Yes. The guard replied respectfully. He glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two, then turned and ran out. How long will it take? Lu Hong asked. Sun Dehai smiled and said, it won't take long because the medicinal materials in the treasure pavilion have been categorized in advance. Each type is stored in a separate Qinkuan bag. They can go and get it. Lu Hong nodded and said, in addition, we also want the fruit on display in the hall. Sun Dehai was surprised and said, do the three of you know what fruit it is? Lu Jing glanced at Sun Dehai and also looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong suspiciously. I don't know. Lu Hong shook her head. If you don't know, what are you going to do? Sun Dehai was suspicious. Lu Hong said calmly, I just think it's very interesting and want to study it. Study it? Sun Dehai looked at Lu Hong and suddenly smiled. He said apologetically, I'm sorry, we really don't intend to sell that fruit. You can name any price. Lu Hong said. Sun Dehai's eyes flashed. Name any price? Did this mean that the fruit was extraordinary? He smiled calmly and said, Miss, this is not a matter of price. The pavilion master personally gave the order. I dare not make a decision on my own. In fact, it was an excuse to test Qin Feiyang and the other two. How could this be hidden from Qin Feiyang's eyes? He waved his hand and a pill appeared on the coffee table. He looked at Sun Dehai and said, I like to do business with honest people. Sun Dehai smiled embarrassedly and lowered his head to look at the pill on the coffee table. He suddenly stood up, his eyes full of surprise. That was actually a potential pill. Could this person be? He suddenly raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, ready to speak. Qin Feiyang said calmly, some words don't have to be said. It's fine as long as you understand it in your heart. Phew. Sun Dehai took a deep breath and returned to his seat. He stretched out his hands, crossed his fingers, and said, 10 potential pills and I'll give you that fruit. Why don't you say 100? Lu Hong sneered. How much was 10 potential pills worth? To think that this old man dared to say that. Sun Dehai smiled and said, Miss, you have to understand that something that even the treasure pavilion doesn't know about is definitely not ordinary. That's why it's worth this price. Perhaps I've even underestimated its value. Lu Hong said, then you have to understand that we can openly snatch it away without paying a single cent. Sun Dehai frowned. That's reasonable. We're not even afraid of the state preceptor and the current emperor. Why would we be afraid of a mere treasure pavilion? Just you wait. I'll go and snatch it now. Lu Jing chuckled, then stood up and walked outside. Wait. Sun Dehai's expression changed. He hurriedly stood up and grabbed Lu Jing. He looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled apologetically. Brother Qin, we've known each other for so long. Can you give me some face? Don't cause trouble here. Only now did he remember that this guy in front of him was a lawless person. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, then tell me, how many potential pills do you want? This, Sun Dahai was hesitant. He really couldn't estimate the value of the fruit. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, how about this, I'll give you 20 potential pills. Take it as the payment for the teleportation gate, herbs, and fruits. What do you think? 20 pills. Sun Dahai's eyes lit up. Lu Jing frowned and said, hurry up and state your position. There's a limit to my patience. Sun Dahai pondered for a while and let go of Lu Jing. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and nodded. Deal. Qin Feiyang immediately went to the ancient castle. Lu Hong smiled and said, elder son, I think it's a little inappropriate for you to ask for potential pills now. What do you mean? Sun Dahai was puzzled. Everyone knows that only we can refine potential pills. When you auction these potential pills, won't the state preceptor and the emperor know that you're colluding with us? Lu Hong said. Oh, I see. Sun Dahai smiled and waved his hand. This isn't a big problem. When they ask, I'll say that they're leftovers from the past. After all, before your identities were exposed, I've had many transactions with you. They won't be able to find out at all. Smart. Lu Hong gave him a thumbs up and said meaningfully, but you're committing the crime of deceiving the emperor. If it's leaked, I'm afraid you'll lose your life. If you don't say it, and I don't say it, who will know? Moreover, it's precisely because you've fallen out with His Majesty that there's a shortage of potential pills. That's why I can take the opportunity to auction them for a good price. Sun Dahai chuckled and didn't care at all. Indeed, all businessmen are evil. Lu Hong secretly despised him. Chapter 1208. Swish. At this time, Qin Feiyang appeared from the ancient castle, holding a Qianquan bag in his hand. Looking at the Qianquan bag, Sun Dahai's eyes lit up. Qin Feiyang shook his head with a smile and directly threw it to Sun Dahai. Sun Dahai hurriedly checked it. However, his eyebrows instantly furrowed. Are you not satisfied? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Sun Dahai raised his eyebrows and said, this old man remembers that you were able to refine pills with 4 pill patterns in the past, but why do these potential pills only have 2 pill patterns? Not to mention 4 pill veins, I can even refine a pill with 7 pill veins. However, the imperial preceptor and the emperor are not fools. If there are too many pill patterns, it will definitely arouse their suspicions. So, it's better to keep a low profile. Moreover, for the people in the imperial capital, it doesn't matter how many pill patterns there are. What's important is that there are potential pills to auction. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. 7 pill patterns. Sun Dahai's eyes trembled. After being in charge of the treasure pavilion for so many years, he had never seen a pill with 7 pill patterns. However, Qin Feiyang's words made sense. At this time, for the people in the imperial capital, even if there were no pill patterns, it would still cause a mad scramble. Dong! Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Sun Dahai hurriedly put away the Qianquan bag, sat on the chair, and shouted, come in. The door opened and the guard strode in, holding no less than a dozen Qianquan bags in his hand. Elder son, the teleportation portal and battle chi pills medicinal materials are all here. If it's not enough, I can go to other districts to get more. The guard placed the dozen Qianquan bags one by one on the tea table. Sun Dahai looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Sun Dahai understood and waved his hand, no need, you can leave. Oh right, go and bring up the 5-colored fruit in the hall on the first floor. Yes. The guard bowed and left, closing the door. Sun Dahai pointed to the Qianquan bag on the table and said with a smile, you guys check. Qin Feiyang said, "There's no need. Put it away." Lu Hong nodded. With a wave of her jade-like hand, all the cosmos bags on the table instantly disappeared. After waiting for a while, the guard came back with the fruit. Qin Feiyang put away the fruit and stood up. He cupped his hands and smiled, "Then I'll take my leave first." "Yes." Sun Dahai nodded, but he suddenly thought of something and said, "Brother Qin, there's something I don't know if I should say." "What?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Although this old man knows that as an outsider, I am not qualified to speak too much, this old man still wishes to say this. You and His Majesty are father and son after all." Sun Dahai sighed. Qin Feiyang's eyes turned cold. Seeing this, Sun Dahai hurriedly smiled and said, "All right, take it as if this old man didn't say anything. If you have the chance in the past, come visit more often." Of course, what he was thinking about was not Qin Feiyang, but the potential pill in Qin Feiyang's bag. Qin Feiyang opened a teleportation door and was about to leave with Lu Hong and Lu Zheng. "Where is the thief who killed my son?" Suddenly, a violent shout exploded in the sky above the treasure pavilion. Sun Dahai's expression changed as he hurriedly said, "It's Zhuge Jing. Leave quickly." "Who is Zhuge Jing?" Lu Hong was suspicious. Lu Zheng smiled and said, "Zhuge Jing is Zhuge Wuho's younger brother, and also Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu's father." "Then what's his cultivation level?" Lu Hong asked. "I don't know about that." Lu Zheng shrugged and looked at Sun Dahai. Sun Dahai said in a deep voice, "Zhuge Jing is very strong. He's a 9-star battle saint and is only one step away from the War Emperor. He's just a 9-star battle saint. It's not worth mentioning." Lu Zheng smiled disdainfully. Lu Hong also smiled faintly, but suddenly frowned and said, "No, I also felt an emperor's aura." Qin Feiyang said, "Let's go out and take a look. If his cultivation level is not good, we'll just eliminate him." "Interesting." Lu Zheng chuckled. This little cousin of his was becoming more and more to his liking. The three of them walked out of the VIP room one after another and walked toward the door. Even the Zhuge family is so disdainful. After all these years, how much has this kid grown? Sun Dahai looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the other two in disbelief. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Don't bully the young for being poor. This sentence was vividly reflected on Qin Feiyang. He also prepared to go out and take a look. But after thinking about it, it was better not to interfere in this matter, lest he invite trouble to himself. Back to Qin Feiyang. He walked out of the VIP room and entered the corridor. Seeing that there was no one around, he stopped and asked Dan Wangkai to come out. "What's wrong?" Dan Wangkai looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, "Change your appearance a little and go out to kill people." Zhuge Jing had brought a combat emperor with him. If they really wanted to kill him, they would definitely need Dan Wangkai's help. When the Grand Master scanned the battlefield with his immortal will in the Demon Dragon Mountains, he also saw Dan Wangkai, so Dan Wangkai naturally could not show his true appearance. "I see." Dan Wangkai nodded his head in realization. He took an illusory form pill and turned into a middle-aged man. Then, he followed behind Qin Feiyang, hiding his cultivation, and walked up the stairs to the door. At the same time, in the sky above the street outside, a middle-aged man in a luxurious robe stood proudly. His energy was so strong that the people on the street below could not breathe. He was Zhuge Jing. At this moment, his face was full of anger and killing intent. Beside him stood an old man. Although he was old, he was glowing red and his body was strong. His long red hair was like flames and his aura was unfathomable. At the same time, his eyes were also filled with a strong killing intent. Behind the two of them stood a group of guards. All of them had cold expressions and sharp gazes, as if they were gods of death. The aura emitted by these guards was much stronger than the 15 guards that the butler had brought. Their cultivation level was basically between 1-star and 3-star battle saints. It could be said that this lineup was very strong. But when Qin Feiyang walked out of the treasure pavilion and saw the group of people, a trace of disdain appeared in his eyes. So it's him. Lu Jing slowly waved his fan, looked at the red-haired old man, and muttered with a smile. Who is he? Lu Hong asked secretly. The Zhuge family has 10 elders, all of whom have the cultivation level of a combat emperor. And this one is ranked 10th. Judging from his aura, he should have just broken through to 1-star combat emperor not long ago. Lu Jing smiled faintly. 1-star combat emperor, I can crush him with one finger. Dan Wangkai smiled coldly. Lu Jing glanced at him and said faintly, don't boast. You're only one level higher than him. Whether I'm boasting or not, you'll know later. Dan Wangkai sneered. Lu Jing was stunned, then shook his head and smiled. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Which one of you killed my 2 sons? Zhuge Jing looked down and scanned Qin Feiyang and the other 3. The killing intent in his eyes was undisguised. Him. Lu Jing pointed at Qin Feiyang without changing his expression. The surrounding crowd, as well as the 4 guards in front of the treasure pavilion, had their faces twitching. How could there be such a shameless person who blamed others without blushing and his heart skipping a beat? But everyone knew that the 2 of them had a close relationship, so it didn't matter who took the blame. Humph. Don't talk nonsense. Although we weren't there before, we've already heard that you're the one who killed Haolong and Haoyu. Zhuge Jing's face was gloomy. Then why did you ask? Can't you just do it? You're really bored. Lu Jing rolled his eyes. How dare you? Do you know who you're talking to now? Zhuge Jing shouted angrily. Lu Jing said, then do you know who you're talking to? Zhuge Jing was about to go crazy. He shouted, do you know who I am? Lu Jing said disdainfully, then do you know who I am? Zhuge Jing said angrily, I'm Zhuge Jing, the younger brother of Zhuge Wuho. How dare you kill my sons? You're courting death. I'm Zhuge Jing's uncle. You'll be struck by lightning if you dare to scold me. Lu Jing grinned. The surrounding people's faces turned red. This kid was really not afraid of death. If he said that he was Zhuge Jing's uncle, wouldn't that mean that he was scolding Zhuge Wuho as well? Bastard! Take them down! Zhuge Jing shouted. Wait! The red-haired old man suddenly reached out and stopped the murderous guards. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 3 and said in a deep voice, how should I address the 4 of you? They dared to kill the people of the Zhuge family on the street and tease Zhuge Jing in public. They must have a powerful background. Therefore, in order to avoid provoking people that they should not provoke, it was better to ask first. Lu Jing rolled his eyes and grinned. My surname is Yu and my name is Dad. You can figure it out yourself. Your surname is Dad. The red-haired old man frowned. The others were also thinking. But soon, someone could not help but laugh. Your surname, Dad, isn't that your father? Bastard! The red-haired old man also understood. He immediately became angry and said, I've already been very polite, but you actually took advantage of me. You deserve to be killed. As soon as he finished speaking, the rolling emperor's aura poured down like a waterfall and imprisoned Qin Feiyang and the other 2. The Zhuge family is the one who deserves to be killed. Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He shouted, don't leave a single one alive. Kill them all. Yes, sir. Dan Wangkai responded respectfully. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he rushed toward Zhuge Jing and the others like a bolt of lightning. Zhuge Jing and the others immediately looked at Dan Wangkai. A mere Zhuge family dares to provoke my young master. You really don't know what's good for you. Dan Wangkai smiled coldly. His emperor's aura exploded and rushed toward the group of people like a raging wave. Combat Emperor. And he's stronger than me. The red-haired old man's eyes widened. Boom. But then, an even more shocking scene appeared. Dan Wangkai's body shook, and an even more powerful aura burst out of his body. How is this possible? This time, even Lu Zheng could not remain calm. Because Dan Wangkai's cultivation had soared to a 4-star combat emperor in an instant. We've underestimated their strength. Run! The red-haired old man's expression changed as he roared. Zhuge Jing and the group of guards were scared silly. They never thought that the other party had hidden such a terrifying expert. Run! Dan Wangkai smiled disdainfully. His big hand grabbed the air, and his battle chi rolled out. A giant hand that covered the sky instantly appeared. The giant hand broke through the air, emitting a great pressure. It grabbed the red-haired old man, Zhuge Jing, and the group of guards in its hand. Then, Dan Wangkai's 5 fingers suddenly clenched. Boom! Ah! Immediately, accompanied by screams, the bodies of Zhuge Jing and the others were crushed by the giant hand. Blood stained the sky. Chapter 1209. So strong. Everyone was dumbfounded. Killing everyone in an instant, what kind of heaven-defying strength was this? But what shocked everyone the most was the courage of Qin Feiyang and his group. Not only did they kill Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu, but they also killed Zhuge Jing and the 10 clan elders. One had to know. These people were all important figures of the Zhuge family. Especially the 10 clan elders, even Zhuge Wuhou himself had to respect them. However, these people killed them without any hesitation, not putting the Zhuge family in their eyes at all. Everyone was wondering who these people were. Let's go. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Feiyang opened the portal, said something to Lu Hong and the other 2, and then turned around and walked in without looking back. You want to leave just like that after killing my Zhuge family's people? Suddenly, a violent roar sounded. Following closely, a purple-robed young man broke through the air like lightning and landed in the sky above the treasure pavilion. It's Zhuge Mingyang. I didn't expect to alarm the number 1 evildoer in the capital. Everyone's heart trembled. But Qin Feiyang had already entered the portal, Lu Hong and Lu Zheng had also entered the portal. Only Dan Wangkai was still outside. Hearing Zhuge Mingyang's voice, Dan Wangkai looked up, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "Don't worry about him." Dan Wangkai smiled coldly, turned around and stepped into the portal. Don't even think about leaving. Zhuge Mingyang was furious. With a wave of his hand, a wave of battle chi rolled out and blasted toward the portal. Don't overestimate yourself. Dan Wangkai's cold voice sounded in the portal. The next moment, a vast emperor's aura emerged and rushed over, annihilating the battle chi in an instant. The emperor's aura rushed toward Zhuge Mingyang. Boom! Zhuge Mingyang was immediately blasted away, blood spurting out of his mouth. A clown. Disdainful laughter came from the teleportation gate. Then, Qin Feiyang and the others disappeared, and the teleportation gate disappeared as well. So strong. Zhuge Mingyang's eyes trembled. Not long ago, he had received news that someone had killed Zhuge Haolong and Zhuge Haoyu, so he had rushed over to take a look. But who would have thought that the other party actually had a battle emperor? Furthermore, judging from the emperor's might, he was not a 1 or 2-star combat emperor. But who was it? The Zhuge family's fame spread far and wide, and their status far surpassed the other martial marquis government. Who would have the guts to kill a member of the Zhuge family? Could it be, suddenly, A figure appeared in Zhuge Mingyang's mind as he muttered, "Is it really him?" Whoosh! At this moment, another figure descended. "Greetings, Commander." Everyone bowed respectfully. That was right. This man was the commander of the Kirin army. He had also received the news and rushed over to take a look. "What's going on?" The commander of the Kirin army glanced at the bloody scene below, frowned slightly, and asked Zhuge Mingyang. Zhuge Mingyang said in a deep voice, "My second uncle, 10th grandpa, Haolong and the rest have all been killed here." The pupils of the Kirin army's commander constricted, and the first thing that came to his mind was Qin Feiyang. Because in the entire great Qin Empire, only Qin Feiyang had the guts to do so. "Who did it?" he asked calmly. "I don't know," a few unfamiliar faces. Zhuge Mingyang shook his head, and said coldly, "But I think, in this world, other than him, no one else dares to be so arrogant." The eyes of the Kirin army's commander flashed. The person that Zhuge Mingyang was talking about was obviously Qin Feiyang. The Kirin army's commander glanced at the crowd below, and said, "Who can tell me the details of the situation?" There were many people below who had witnessed the entire process. For a moment, everyone was talking at once, and there was an uproar. Soon, the commander of the Kirin army had a rough idea of what had happened, and he shouted, "Sun Dahai, come out now." Sun Dahai ran out of the treasure pavilion in a hurry, and bowed, "Greetings, Commander, young Master Zhuge." The commander of the Kirin army said, "It happened in the treasure pavilion, why didn't you stop it?" "Commander, you are wrong. It didn't happen in the treasure pavilion, it happened on the street outside the treasure pavilion, and the treasure pavilion has no right to intervene. Moreover, those people are cruel, and I can't do anything." Sun Dahai said apologetically. These were all polite words, and everyone could tell. Zhuge Mingyang said angrily, "But they entered the treasure pavilion." "I don't deny that. But they entered the treasure pavilion to buy things. The treasure pavilion is open for business, and we can't reject them just because they have some grudges with the Zhuge family." Sun Dahai laughed. The meaning of his words was obvious. Although the Zhuge family was powerful now, but what the treasure pavilion wanted to do was none of his business. Zhuge Mingyang clenched his fists and said in a low voice, "You have to understand, this person is very likely to be him." "Who is it?" Sun Dahai asked. Zhuge Mingyang said, "You know it in your heart." Sun Dahai shook his head, "I really don't understand, young Master Zhuge, please enlighten me." "Qin, Fei, Yang." Zhuge Mingyang said word by word, and every word was as sharp as a blade. "What?" Everyone's eyes trembled. Sun Dahai also raised his eyebrows and smiled, "Young Master Zhuge's imagination is really admirable." "I'm not joking with you," Zhuge Mingyang said in a low voice. "I'm not joking either. I personally received them just now, and I didn't find anyone similar to Qin Feiyang." Sun Dahai said. Zhuge Mingyang said angrily, "Don't you know that there's something called the phantom elixir in this world?" "Young Master Zhuge, I respect you, but please don't insult my intelligence. I've been in charge of the treasure pavilion for so many years, how could I not know about the phantom elixir? However, my treasure pavilion has thousands of customers every day, I can't use the Heaven's Eye stone to test their identities one by one, can I? You have to know that this is a great disrespect to the customers." Sun Dahai said lightly. Zhuge Mingyang's face was as dark as water. Sun Dahai glanced at Zhuge Mingyang and the commander of the Kirin army and smiled, "There are still many things waiting for me to deal with in the treasure pavilion. If there's nothing else, I'll go do it." "Go." The commander of the Kirin army waved his hand. Sun Dahai smiled and turned around to enter the treasure pavilion. His eyes flashed with a bright light. Originally, he wanted to auction off the potential elixir immediately. But now, it seemed that he had to wait for the news to die down. Otherwise, it would definitely arouse Zhuge Mingyang's suspicion. Outside the city. In the sky above a dense forest. Lu Hong looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Will Sun Dehai betray us?" Qin Feiyang smiled, "Don't worry, if he betrays us, he won't let us leave the treasure pavilion." At the same time, Lu Zheng looked at Dan Wangkai and asked in surprise, "What happened to your cultivation?" A 2-star combat emperor instantly rose to a 4-star combat emperor, an increase of 2 small realms. From what he knew, there was no such heaven-defying battle art in this world. Dan Wangkai turned a deaf ear and stood silently beside Qin Feiyang. He deactivated the forbidden technique and his cultivation returned to a 2-star combat emperor. This made Lu Zheng even more surprised. He smiled and said, "You're not an outsider, what's there to hide? Tell me. Aren't you annoying?" Dan Wangkai looked at him impatiently. "You have character." Lu Zheng chuckled and said, "Actually, even if you don't say it, I can guess that you must have mastered some kind of forbidden technique." Dan Wangkai raised his eyebrows. "Don't forget, I'm a member of the Lu family." Lu Zheng smiled proudly. Dan Wangkai snorted, "Don't forget, even if you're a member of the Lu family, I can kill you with one hand." The smile on Lu Zheng's face froze. This guy really doesn't give me any face. At this moment, Qin Feiyang took out the 5-colored fruit and looked at it carefully. The fruit was like a colorful diamond, bright and dazzling. The rich smell of the fruit assaulted their noses, making them salivate. Dan Wangkai looked at Lu Zheng and said indifferently, "You always say that the Lu family is amazing and awesome, so you should be omnipotent and omniscient, right? Then do you know what this is?" Lu Zheng's face twitched. If he knew, he wouldn't have kept quiet. "Tell me." The Elixir King questioned with an aggressive look in his eyes. Lu Zheng coughed and said, "Although I don't know what it is, I'm sure it's definitely not an ordinary thing." "Do I need you to tell me that?" Dan Wangkai rolled his eyes and said, "Since you don't know, then keep a low profile in the future. Don't always act like you're amazing. I say, do you think I'm easy to bully?" Lu Zheng raised his eyebrows, his expression full of displeasure. Dan Wangkai said expressionlessly, "I just can't stand your domineering behavior." "Then don't look at me." Lu Zheng waved his hand impatiently. "That's enough. How old are you? Why are you still quarreling?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at them and put away the colorful fruit. Lu Hong suddenly asked, "By the way, why didn't you just kill Zhuge Mingyang?" Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he said, "Now is not the time to kill him. Besides, now he is deeply favored by the emperor and the state preceptor, so he must have some trump cards." "For example?" Lu Hong asked. "The state preceptor's killing intent. Back then, old Qin gave me a wisp of killing intent to protect myself, so the state preceptor can naturally give Zhuge Mingyang a wisp of killing intent to protect himself." Qin Feiyang said. Lu Hong nodded in understanding. Buzz. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's image crystal rang. After he took it out, the shadow of the commander of the Kirin army emerged. Looking at the appearance of Qin Feiyang and the others, the commander of the Kirin army immediately frowned and said, "Sure enough, it was you who killed Qin Feiyang and the others." Because Qin Feiyang and the others had not recovered their true appearances yet. "Yes, it was us," Qin Feiyang said lightly. The commander of the Kirin army asked, "Why? Is it because Zhuge Mingyang offended you before?" "I don't take Zhuge Mingyang seriously. I killed them because they deserved to die," Qin Feiyang said. "What did they do to you? Why do you hate them so much?" The commander of the Kirin army was puzzled. They wanted to shake the great Qin dynasty. Killing intent surged in Qin Feiyang's eyes. The eldest prince was the son of Zhuge Wuho and the current empress. If he had not killed the eldest prince back then, the great Qin dynasty would have become the Zhuge family's empire after the eldest prince inherited the throne. Chapter 12:10. Shake the Great Qin Empire. The commander of the Kirin army trembled and asked in disbelief, "Are you joking with me?" Qin Feiyang said, "Do I look like I'm joking? How is that possible? I've had many interactions with the Zhuge family and have always followed the rules. Why would I do such a thing?" The commander of the Kirin army said. This was something that he found hard to accept. Follow the rules. Humph, there are some things that you don't know. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I'll expose their wild ambitions to the world. By then, you'll know whether what I did today was right or wrong. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he directly turned off the image crystal. This person was too loyal to the emperor. Even with the slave seal, he could not control him. If he knew the true identity of the first prince, he would definitely tell the emperor immediately. Therefore, he could not tell him now. Buzz. But in less than 3 breaths, the image crystal vibrated again. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and infused his battle qi into it. A figure appeared. He thought it was the commander of the Kirin army again and said angrily without looking, "Are you done? What's going on?" A suspicious voice sounded. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked up and saw Yan Wei. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Sorry, I thought it was the commander of the Kirin army. How are things on your side?" "The Grand Tutor is too cautious." Yan Wei sighed deeply and said with a smile, "But now, I've successfully entered the law enforcement hall." "The inner hall?" Qin Feiyang asked. "No. But as long as I can enter the law enforcement hall, I'm confident that I can enter the inner hall and become the Grand Tutor's confidant." Yan Wei said with a confident smile. "Be careful, don't give yourself away." Qin Feiyang smiled. He believed in Yan Wei's ability. "I will." "Where do you plan to go next?" Yan Wei asked. "Sea of Reincarnation." Qin Feiyang said. The Sea of Reincarnation was located at the extreme north of the imperial capital. It stretched as far as the eye could see. The environment here was extremely harsh. Strong winds blew and tsunamis surged. Powerful sea beasts could be seen everywhere. Ordinary Xiuzhe did not dare to set foot in this area. However, it was precisely in such a place that a village was located. The village was only a little over 100 miles away from the Reincarnation Ocean. Ferocious beasts roamed the vast mountains, but strangely, there was not a single trace of a ferocious beast within a dozen miles of the village. The village wasn't small, but compared to a bustling place like Emperor City, it wasn't that big. More than 2,000 villagers were gathered here. This place could be said to be isolated from the rest of the world, but everyone lived very comfortably. Young and strong men were hunting outside. The elderly, women, and children stayed at home to take care of the house. Everything seemed so peaceful and simple. But at this moment, a middle-aged woman stood at the entrance of the village, gazing into the distant mountains. Her face was filled with worry. The woman was only 35 or 36 years old, but her face was pale, her eyes were empty, and her face was full of wrinkles. She looked like a person in her 50s. Time passed, and the sky gradually darkened. The woman was still standing at the entrance of the village, as if waiting for someone to return. Night finally fell and the mountain was plunged into darkness. Every household in the village lit up their lanterns. Thud. Suddenly, a series of steady and powerful footsteps sounded from afar. Hearing the footsteps, the woman's empty eyes finally glowed with a touch of light. In the darkness, a middle-aged strong man dressed as a hunter gradually entered the woman's sight. The strong man was burly, at least 1.9 meters tall, carrying a 2-meter-long bull. His footsteps were steady and powerful. However, he had no cultivation base. That barbarian bull was just an ordinary wild beast. Seeing the strong man, the light in the woman's eyes dissipated and was replaced by a trace of disappointment. When the strong man saw the woman, he was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, "Jie's mother, why are you still standing here?" "I'm waiting for Jie." The woman smiled, but her smile was stiff. The strong man was stunned and asked in surprise, "Jie hasn't returned yet?" The woman nodded. The strong man said angrily, "What's that kid doing? He's not young anymore and he's still so immature." The woman shook her head. "It's not Jie's fault. He went out to look for his sister. His sister has been missing for so many days. She must have died under the claws of a ferocious beast. How can he find her?" The strong man sighed. Instantly, the woman was enraged and shouted, "Nonsense! Jean can't be dead. She must still be alive." Her expression was filled with pain. The strong man could not bear it and persuaded, "Don't be silly. If she's really not dead, how can she not return after half a month? Get lost right now." The woman shouted. "You don't know what's good for you." The brawny man coldly snorted and carried the bull into the village without looking back. "Jean will be fine, Jie will definitely find her," the woman muttered to herself and looked at the deep mountains in the night. 2 drops of tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Roar! In the deathly silent depths of the mountains, the occasional loud roar of a beast could be heard. At a certain mountain stream, a 12 or 13-year-old boy was walking alone. "After father passed away, I only have my sister and mother left. No matter what, I must find my sister." The young boy clenched his hands together and his pitch-black eyes were like black gemstones that shone with a resolute light. 12 or 13 years old was still a child. However, there was a maturity and steadiness on this young boy's face that was different from his peers. Soon, the young boy came to a short mountain and looked up at the peak before climbing up with all his might. Along the way, the thorns cut his skin and blood flowed. However, he did not care at all and there was a hint of stubbornness in his eyes. Finally, panting heavily, he climbed to the peak of the mountain and stood at the edge of the cliff. Looking at the night sky in the distance, he murmured, "Sister, where did you go? Do you know that mother and I missed you so much and were worried about you?" All of a sudden, a hissing sound came from behind him. There was also a stench that assailed his nostrils. The young man quivered and turned his head abruptly. He saw a pair of green eyes staring coldly at him from a dozen meters away. It was a poisonous python that was 10 meters long and as thick as a water bucket. Its entire body was covered with black scales. "This is bad. Unknowingly, I actually left the forbidden area." The young boy panicked but pretended to be calm. He waved his small fist and shouted, "My fist is very hard. You better not come over." The poisonous python spat out its tongue and stared at the young boy for a moment. Its long and narrow snake eyes flashed with a hint of disdain and then it swam towards the young boy. "I'm telling you, if you come over again, I won't be polite to you." The young boy kept retreating. On the surface, he looked very fierce but in fact, he was extremely terrified. Whoosh! Suddenly, that poisonous python increased its speed, opened its bloody mouth and revealed its sharp fangs as it pounced towards the young boy. It was the young boy's first time seeing such a huge poisonous python. He had no doubt that it could swallow him alive. But at this moment, he had already retreated to the edge of the cliff and had nowhere to go. "I'll fight it out with you." He gritted his teeth and took out a dagger from his arms. It was just an ordinary dagger and flew towards the poisonous python. The poisonous python was stunned. It obviously did not expect that the young boy would dare to resist. But then, its eyes shone with a fierce light as it spat out venom. The young boy was shocked. His body technique was very agile. Like an ape, he narrowly dodged and then stabbed the poisonous python 7 inches. He succeeded. But the scales on the poisonous python's body were harder than he imagined. Accompanied by a clanging sound, sparks flew. The dagger only left a mark on the scales. And this move had also completely angered the poisonous python. The long snake tongue spat out, wrapped around the young boy's ankle and dragged him towards the bloody mouth. "No, I can't die. If I die, no one will take care of my mother," the young boy roared. The strong desire to survive overcame the fear in his heart. He firmly grasped the dagger and stabbed it into the poisonous python's tongue. Blood instantly splashed. The poisonous python hissed in pain and released its tongue. The young boy finally escaped and was about to flee. But the furious poisonous python raised its enormous tail and slapped the young boy's back. Ah! A blood-curdling scream resounded through the sky. The young boy was like a meteor that flew out from the edge of the cliff and fell downwards. This short mountain was only a few dozen zhang high. For Xiuzhe, it was nothing. But for normal people, falling down was fatal. "Mother, sister, I don't want to," the young boy roared in despair. But he did not notice. The poisonous python also did not notice. At this time, in the void above, 2 streaks of light broke through the air. It was a male and a female. The male was about 23 or 24 years old. His figure was tall. His clothes were as white as snow. His facial features were sharp and clear. His long hair fluttered in the wind, giving off an otherworldly aura. The female had an exquisite figure. Her hair was like a waterfall. Her facial features were extremely beautiful. She was also wearing a snow-white long dress. She was like a fairy from the heavens, graceful and graceful. The two were Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. N. Who's calling? Suddenly, Lu Hong was stunned. She stopped and looked down. She immediately saw the young boy in despair. There was someone in the wilderness. And it was a child. Whoosh! The next moment, Lu Hong turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the young boy. The young boy was also in complete despair. He closed his eyes and quietly waited for death. But just as he was about to fall to the ground, he suddenly felt someone grab his arm. His body suddenly became light. The next moment, he was suspended in the void. N. The young boy was stunned. He turned his head and saw a beautiful sister in white standing beside him. He instinctively asked, "Are you an angel?" "Angel?" Lu Hong was slightly stunned. She shook her head and smiled. She landed on the ground with the young boy. Qin Feiyang also swooped down and landed beside the two. "You can actually fly." Seeing this scene, the young boy's eyes almost popped out. He stuttered and asked, "Are you an immortal?" "Immortal?" This time, Qin Feiyang was also stunned. Chapter 12:11. Hiss. At this moment, the poisonous python chased after them. When it saw Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong, its eyes suddenly flashed with a shocking cold light. There was a hint of threat in its eyes. Lu Hong looked at the poisonous python and couldn't help but be stunned. She laughed and said, "You've just been enlightened. How dare you threaten us?" The poisonous python only had the cultivation of a martial master. A martial master level beast was very strong for a teenager without cultivation. It was like a god. But in the eyes of the two battle saints, Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong, it was naturally vulnerable. The poisonous python looked at the two of them and flicked its tongue. "Why aren't you leaving?" Lu Hong's eyes were cold as she released a wisp of holy power. The holy power was undoubtedly comparable to the power of heaven for a fierce beast like the poisonous python. It was paralyzed on the spot and didn't even have the strength to leave. Its eyes were full of fear. Lu Hong shook her head with a smile and retracted her holy power. Only then did the poisonous python breathe a sigh of relief. It was already sweating all over, and then it fled into the mountains without looking back. So powerful. The teenager looked at Lu Hong with admiration. If he had such an ability, he wouldn't have almost lost his life. Lu Hong asked with a smile, "Tell me, what are you doing here alone?" Hearing this, the teenager's face suddenly fell. He said, "I'm looking for my sister." "What's the matter?" Lu Hong asked. The teenager lowered his head and said, "Half a month ago, my sister suddenly disappeared and hasn't returned home yet. I was really worried, so I went into the mountains to look for her." Lu Hong asked, "Do you have any clues now?" The teenager shook his head and said, "The villagers said that my sister must have died under the claws of a beast and asked me not to look for her. But I don't believe it." "The village?" Lu Hong was slightly stunned and asked, "Where is your village?" The teenager pointed to the mountains in the north and said, "The village is over there, more than 10 miles away from here." More than 10 miles. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong looked at each other, their eyes full of disbelief. For an ordinary person, a distance of more than 10 miles was not a normal distance. Qin Feiyang asked, "How did you get here? Did you encounter any ferocious beasts along the way?" "Vicious beast?" The young man was slightly stunned. He shook his head and said, "There are no ferocious beasts within a dozen miles of our village. There are only some ordinary wild beasts. We rely on hunting for a living. No berserk beasts." Qin Feiyang was stunned. On the way from the imperial city, they had encountered many ferocious beasts. There were even sacred beasts and emperor beasts. But how could there not be any here? Lu Hong said, "Little brother, let me ask you, do you know about the Sea of Reincarnation?" The youth shook his head and said, "I've never heard of the Sea of Reincarnation, but I heard from the elders in the village that there's a sea far away from our village." "Which direction?" Lu Hong asked. "North." The young man said. "How far?" Lu Hong asked again. The young man thought for a moment and said, "It seems to be more than 100 miles away." "North, more than 100 miles, Lu Hong thought for a while and looked at Qin Feiyang. She transmitted her voice, "I think the sea he mentioned might be the Sea of Reincarnation. Why don't we send him back first and continue our journey?" Qin Feiyang nodded. The young man's village was also in the north. It was on the way. Lu Hong looked at the young man and said with a smile, "Little brother, it's already dark. Why don't we send you back first and you can continue to search tomorrow?" "No. I won't go back until I find my sister," the young man said stubbornly. Qin Feiyang frowned. If what the young man said was true and his sister had been missing for half a month, then she must have met with a mishap. But the young man was still young, so it was not appropriate to say these words directly. "Put on." Suddenly, the young man knelt on the ground and looked at the two of them and pleaded, "Sister Angel, brother immortal, can you help me find my sister? I beg you." This, Lu Hong couldn't make up her mind and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang frowned. To be honest, he really didn't want to meddle in other people's business. "I'll kowtow to you, as long as I can find my sister, I'm willing to do anything." The young man begged again and again, his face full of anxiety and worry. Qin Feiyang said, "Then tell me first, how did your sister go missing?" The young man said, "Half a month ago, my sister went out to hunt as usual, but she never came home." "Hunting? Why is it your sister hunting? Where are your parents?" Qin Feiyang frowned. The young man said, "My father passed away a long time ago. My mother has been sick all year round and is weak. She doesn't have the ability to hunt, so all these years, my sister has been taking care of me and my mother." So pitiful. Lu Hong sighed and asked with a smile, "How old is your sister? Is she a warrior?" The young man said, "Sister is 18 years old, not a warrior. 18 years old, not a warrior, but supporting a family. Amazing. Lu Hong was full of hope. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Why don't we help him find her? Maybe his sister just met with an accident and didn't die." "Yes, that must be the case. Brother Immortal, please, help me, okay? If you can help me find my sister, I will treat you to a drink." The young man said. "Drink?" Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Did he look like someone who lacked alcohol? But judging from the young man's family background, that was probably all he could afford. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, for the sake of the wine, I'll help you find her." "Thank you, Brother Immortal." The young man was overjoyed and grateful. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed, saying, "Okay, get up. A man has gold under his knees. Don't kneel when you see someone, and don't call me Brother Immortal. I'm not an immortal." "Then who are you?" The young man got up and looked at him suspiciously. "Who am I?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He didn't expect the young man to ask such a question. After thinking for a while, he said with a smile, "I'm just an ordinary warrior. Ordinary martial artists can fly. But why did I hear that only immortals can fly in the sky?" The young man was puzzled. "Who told you that?" Qin Feiyang frowned. The person who said this was simply pretending to be mysterious and misleading the young man. The young man said, "Immortal Shen said so." "Who is Immortal Shen?" Lu Hong was suspicious. The young man said, "Every 2 years, an old man comes to our village on a crane. People in our village call him Immortal Shen." Lu Hong asked, "What does he do in your village?" The young man was about to speak. Qin Feiyang said, "You talk. I'll go around and look for him. By the way, what does your sister look like?" "My sister looks like," the young man thought for a while, took out a piece of yellowed paper from his arms, and then opened it. There were 4 people drawn on the paper. A middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, and a young woman. The rest was the young man himself. The young man pointed to the young woman and said, "She is my sister, Wang Jin." Obviously. The middle-aged man was the young man's father who had passed away. The middle-aged woman must be the young man's mother. Qin Feiyang looked down at the woman's portrait, and there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. Whether it was the woman's outline or charm, they were all very well drawn. Although she was only wearing a shabby linen dress, she looked beautiful and refined. "You stay here with him." After remembering the woman's appearance, Qin Feiyang secretly told Lu Hong. Then he rushed into the sky and quickly disappeared in the night sky. "Aren't we going to help?" Seeing Qin Feiyang leave, the young man quickly looked at Lu Hong and asked. "Your immortal brother is very powerful. He doesn't need our help. Come on, tell me, did you draw these portraits?" Lu Hong asked. "Yes. I don't have any hobbies, but I like to draw. It took me 2 days to draw this picture. Is it okay?" The young man asked innocently. "It's very good." Lu Hong nodded with a smile and asked, "By the way, can you tell me about the immortal crane you mentioned just now?" "Okay." The young man nodded. "Let's sit over there and talk slowly," Lu Hong said with a smile. Not far away, there was a bluestone. Lu Hong walked over with the young man and sat on the bluestone. The young man slowly said. At the same time, Qin Feiyang flew over a mountain ridge. While scanning below, he also released his perception and carefully sensed the breath and movement below. But suddenly, he stopped in the void and waved his hand. All the people and beasts in the castle appeared. "You all heard what I said just now. Help me look for her, but don't be too flamboyant. It's better to hide your breath." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, battle chi surged, and Wang Jin's virtual shadow condensed. After remembering Wang Jin's appearance, Fatso asked, "How do we find her?" Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and said, "The young man said that Wang Jin went missing when she went out to hunt. We will look for her near the village, but we have to expand the scope and search within 100 miles. Understood." Everyone nodded and immediately turned into streaks of flowing light, dispersing in all directions and disappearing. But Lu Jing didn't leave. She looked down at the mountains below, and her eyes flickered. Qin Feiyang said suspiciously, "Why are you still standing here? Don't you think it strange?" Lu Jing didn't answer but asked. "What's strange?" Qin Feiyang asked. "This place is close to the Sea of Reincarnation, but why is there a village here, and why is there no beast within a dozen miles of the village?" Lu Jing said. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Lu Zheng's eyes flashed and said, "The young man's village isn't simple. Let's go and take a look." Qin Feiyang nodded. Whoosh! The two of them cut through the sky and headed north, not forgetting to look for Wang Jin along the way. A dozen miles of distance was too easy for the two of them. In less than 100 breaths, a village came into their sight. The two of them hid their breath and stood in the sky, scanning the village. There were more than 2,000 families in the village, occupying half a mile of land. Every house looked old. Although it wasn't late at night, it was hard to see anyone in the village. It was quiet. How is this possible? Lu Jing scanned the village, disbelief written all over his face. This huge village was full of ordinary people. It's indeed strange. Qin Feiyang muttered. This place was only 100 miles away from the Sea of Reincarnation. It could be said that this place was extremely dangerous, but there was a group of ordinary people living here. Chapter 12:12. I really don't believe that this is an ordinary village. I'll go down and take a look. Lu Jing said. Don't act recklessly. Qin Feiyang reminded him. Got it. Lu Jing waved his hand impatiently. He sneaked into the village without anyone noticing and began to wander around. With his cultivation, no one would be able to discover him. Qin Feiyang stood silently in the sky, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, he seemed to have discovered something. He looked at the entrance of the village and saw a middle-aged woman standing there. The woman looked at the distant mountains, her hollow eyes filled with worry. She's been waiting here. Qin Feiyang muttered. He had seen this woman before. She was the young man's mother. Whoosh! Soon, Lu Jing appeared beside Qin Feiyang like a ghost. Seeing Qin Feiyang staring at the entrance of the village, he also looked down. When he saw the woman, Lu Jing asked suspiciously, Who is she? The young man's mother. Qin Feiyang said. Lu Jing nodded in realization and sighed. What a pitiful person. If Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong had not saved the young man in time, she would have lost not only her daughter but also her son. Although she's pitiful, it also reflects that her mother is really the greatest person in the world. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and asked, How's the investigation? Lu Jing retracted his gaze and shook his head. They're all ordinary people. There's not a single cultivator. Qin Feiyang frowned and scanned the village. Lu Jing added, However, I found something unusual. What is it? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Look there. Lu Jing pointed to the center of the village. Qin Feiyang looked in the direction he pointed. He immediately saw a 5 to 6 meter high hill in the center of the village. However, it was not a hill. It was a tomb. There was also a tombstone in front of them. The tombstone was over 2 meters tall, and there were a few large words carved on it, Tomb of Ancestor King Yangfeng. Wang Yangfeng. I've never heard of such a person. Qin Feiyang frowned. Lu Jing said, Not just you, even I haven't heard of it before. But that's not the point. The point is that there's something strange about the tomb. What? Qin Feiyang looked at him in surprise. Come with me. As soon as Lu Jing finished speaking, he dashed towards the grave. Very soon. When the two of them landed in front of the grave, an ancient aura immediately assaulted them. This aura came from the tombstone. Obviously. This tombstone had existed for many years. Lu Jing said, according to my estimation, this tombstone is at least 5,000 to 6,000 years old. That long? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Didn't this mean that this village had existed for at least 5,000 to 6,000 years? What kind of secret was hidden in such an ancient village? He suddenly felt that this village seemed to be covered with a mysterious veil, making it impossible for him to see through it. Lu Jing said, release your perception and see if you can find anything in the tomb. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He released his perception and rushed towards the tomb. The next moment, his body shook violently, and his eyes were full of shock. There was actually a mysterious force hidden in this tomb that blocked his perception. You found it. There's a lot of mystery in here. I'm even thinking that there's not a single beast within a radius of more than 10 miles. It's very likely because of this tomb. Lu Zheng's eyes shone brightly. Qin Feiyang said, you mean that the owner of this tomb was extremely powerful when he was alive, so those beasts didn't dare to approach the village? Lu Zheng nodded. It's getting more and more interesting. Qin Feiyang chuckled. He never expected to encounter such an interesting village on the way. Who's there? Suddenly, a shout was heard. A villager walked out of a house not far away with a torch. He accidentally saw two shadows in front of the tomb and immediately shouted. But the next moment, then, the two shadows disappeared. What's going on? Was it an illusion? The villager rubbed his eyes and looked at the grave suspiciously. He didn't take it to heart and turned to walk towards the house on the opposite side. He shouted, Brother Mu, give me some wine. I've finished it. You drunkard, will you die if you don't drink for a day? Following this, a cursing sound came from within the house. Back to Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng. The two of them didn't leave. They just hid behind the tomb. Lu Zheng whispered, why don't we wait until it's late at night and dig it up to take a look? Digging up someone's ancestral tomb, aren't you afraid of shortening your life? Qin Feiyang was speechless. He actually came up with such a rotten idea. What a genius. Lu Zheng rolled his eyes at him and said blandly, cultivators, don't be so superstitious, okay? Qin Feiyang said, don't talk nonsense. I can't do such a wicked thing as digging up someone's ancestral tomb. Lu Zheng frowned and said, then don't you want to know what's inside? Yes, but there are many ways. We don't have to dig up the tomb. Qin Feiyang said. Stubborn. Lu Zheng glared at him and said, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I'm going to look for that little girl. After saying that, he left quietly. Qin Feiyang glanced at the grave and also silently soared into the sky, disappearing without a trace. Time passed quietly. Late at night, the young man had fallen asleep. Lu Hong held him in her arms. No one knew what she was thinking. She stroked the young man's hair in a daze. But there was a trace of motherly love on her face. Swish! A white figure appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyang. And Lu Hong didn't notice Qin Feiyang's appearance. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He walked up to Lu Hong, looked at the expression on her face, and said with a smile, since you like children so much, you should find a man you love and have one as soon as possible. Ah! Lu Hong was shocked. She looked up at Qin Feiyang, and her face suddenly blushed. What are you thinking about? Why are you so shy? Qin Feiyang was curious. Nothing, nothing, Lu Hong hurriedly waved her hand, looking a little flustered. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and said, you little girl, you must be hiding something. Lu Hong smiled embarrassedly and asked, did you find his sister? The others don't know, but I didn't find her. After saying that, Qin Feiyang looked at the sleeping youth and said, he's most likely already met with misfortune. He didn't care about his own safety and went deep into the mountains alone. It can be seen how deep their relationship is. If his sister is really killed, you can imagine how heavy a blow it will be to him. Lu Hong sighed. Qin Feiyang said, life is like this. Only by suffering can one learn to grow. Lu Hong said, but this is too cruel for him. After all, he is still young. Qin Feiyang said, everyone has a process of growth. This may be his fate. Lu Hong sighed deeply. Swish. Not long after, Fatso and Wolf King also came back. How is it? Lu Hong asked. The man and the wolf shook their heads. After that, Viper, Dan Wangkai, the Flood Dragon, the Pangolin, and so on also came back one after another, but they didn't find Wang Jin. Not to mention 100 miles, they even searched a radius of 200 miles, but there was no trace at all. Okay then, you go to the castle and continue to cultivate. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and was about to send everyone to the castle, but he suddenly frowned and said, have you seen Lu Zheng? No, isn't he with you? Fatso said. Qin Feiyang frowned and sent everyone to the castle. After waiting for a while, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but frown. Where did Lu Zheng go? Did he really go to dig up someone's ancestral grave while I was away? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Lu Hong was stunned and asked, dig up someone's ancestral grave? What's going on? Qin Feiyang said, it's a long story. Hurry up and carry him. Let's go to that village. Okay. Lu Hong nodded, picked up the sleeping boy, and followed Qin Feiyang to the village. After a while, the two of them came to the sky above the village. At this time, the lights in the village had all been extinguished, and it was dead silent. Qin Feiyang looked directly at the grave and saw a dark shadow sneaking around the grave. Who else could it be but Lu Zheng? This son of a bitch, he really did it. Qin Feiyang was furious. He landed in front of the grave like lightning and shouted, what are you doing? Lu Zheng was startled. When he saw that it was Qin Feiyang, he was relieved. There's something strange about this grave. Lu Hong landed in front of the grave, and there was a touch of surprise in her eyes. Lu Zheng glanced at Qin Feiyang, who had a dark face, and went up to Lu Hong with a guilty conscience and said with a flattering smile, Hong, your insight is really good. Qin Feiyang said, don't change the subject. Do you want to dig up the grave? Lu Zheng said innocently, no. Qin Feiyang said, then why are you wandering around here? I'm just curious, that's not right. I'm your cousin. What am I doing? What right do you have to interfere? I should be the one to interfere. Lu Zheng said angrily. You also know that you're my cousin. As my cousin, shouldn't you set a good example in front of your cousin? Lu Hong looked at him disdainfully. Lu Zheng said with a smile, Hong is right. I will perform well in the future. I guarantee that you will be satisfied. Lu Hong couldn't help but have a headache. Couldn't this guy be a little more serious? Don't call me Hong all day. It's so disgusting. Since you want to know what's inside so much, I'll satisfy you. Qin Feiyang said. So you agree with me digging up the grave? Lu Zheng's eyes lit up. Get lost. Qin Feiyang shouted secretly. Lu Hong hurriedly comforted him, don't be angry. Although he's a scumbag, he's your cousin after all. Lu Zheng said aggrievedly, Hong, what do you mean? How am I a scumbag? You're hurting my heart. I don't want to talk to you. Lu Hong turned her head away. Out of sight, out of mind. Lu Zheng's expression stiffened. He turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang for help and said, "Cousin, Hong is angry. Quickly help me put in a good word. Cousin's lifelong happiness depends on you. Why do I feel like you're asking for a beating?" Qin Feiyang looked at him helplessly, rubbed his swollen head, and said, "I said I'll satisfy you, not to dig up the grave, but to stay in the village and slowly investigate." "I see. No. You want me to stay in the village to investigate, while you go to the Sea of Reincarnation. Aren't you deliberately trying to separate me and Hong? Cousin, you can't be like this. After all, we're related by blood." Lu Jing said discontentedly. "I'll stay too. Lu Hong will stay too. We'll all stay. Is that okay?" Qin Feiyang gnashed his teeth. He was about to go crazy. He really didn't know what to do with this cousin who suddenly appeared. "Of course we can all stay." Lu Jing chuckled and didn't care at all. "Oh my God, who did I offend? Why do I have such a weird cousin?" Qin Feiyang looked at the sky helplessly. He was about to collapse. This was simply torture. Lu Hong couldn't help but snicker. Chapter 12-13. At the entrance of the village. "Jia, come back quickly." The woman looked at the vast mountains in the night and muttered to herself helplessly. Thud. Suddenly, the sound of steady footsteps could be heard. The woman hurriedly looked over and saw two men and a woman walking out of the darkness. The woman was holding a young man in her arms. It was Qin Feiyang and the other two. At this moment, they restrained their cultivation and aura and looked like ordinary people. "Jia, Seeing the young man, the woman trembled and immediately ran over. But seeing that the young man did not respond, her expression changed and she looked up at Lu Hong and asked, "Miss, what's wrong with my son?" She thought that something had happened to the young man and was so anxious that she burst into tears. "Don't worry, he's just tired and fell asleep." Lu Hong smiled and comforted her. "Fell asleep?" The woman was stunned and then sighed in relief. Then, she looked at the three of them and asked suspiciously, "May I know who you are?" "We're passers-by. Not long ago, your son encountered a poisonous python and we happened to pass by, so we saved him and sent him back." Lu Hong smiled and said. "So you're Jia, saviors. Thank you." The woman immediately knelt on the ground and said gratefully. "You can't do that, get up quickly." Seeing that, Lu Hong hurriedly said, then looked at Lu Jing and said angrily, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help Auntie up." Okay. Lu Jing nodded and walked to the woman and said with a smile, "It's just a small matter, don't mention it. To you, it's a small matter, but to me, it's a huge favor. Now, I only have Jia left, if even he is gone, I don't know how to live. This old woman is unable to repay your great kindness. I would like to invite the three of you to have a seat at my home." The woman got up and said with a sincere face. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and smiled. This was exactly what they wanted. Lu Hong smiled and said, "Then we'll be disturbing you." No. The woman waved her hand repeatedly and looked at Lu Hong with a smile. "Miss, thank you for your hard work. Give Jia to me." Lu Hong said, "It's okay. You're a little weak. I'll carry you inside. You're Jia savior, how can I let you do this kind of manual labor?" The woman was a little scared. Lu Hong smiled and said, "It's really fine. Let's go in." All right, thank you, Mississippi," the woman said gratefully. Then, she turned around and led Qin Feiyang and the other two into the village. They walked down a small path on the left. "Miss, how do you know that my body is weak? Are you a doctor?" As the woman walked, she turned back to look at Lu Hong and asked. Lu Hong smiled and said, "I'm not a doctor. Jia told me that." This child, the woman shook her head and smiled. Lu Hong said, your son is very sensible. A trace of pride appeared on the woman's face. She said, although our family's conditions are not as good as the others in the village, when it comes to being sensible, no child can compare to Jia. By the way, what are your names? My name is Lu. Lu Hong was about to say her name when Qin Feiyang suddenly coughed and interrupted her. Lu Hong looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said telepathically, although this is a little remote, it's still in the capital. It's better to be careful. Lu Hong nodded and looked at the woman. My name is Lu Xiaoqin. These two are Jiang Fei and Jiang Zheng. Jiang Fei, Jiang Zheng. The woman was stunned. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng, she asked, are you brothers? Ahem. Qin Feiyang coughed and nodded. Kind of. Lu Zheng said discontentedly, what do you mean kind of? We are brothers. Shut up and don't talk. Qin Feiyang glared at him. Why? My mouth is on my face. I can say whatever I want. Why do you care? Lu Zheng rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang. If you talk nonsense again, don't follow me. Qin Feiyang said with a dark face. Don't be mistaken. I'm not following you. I'm following Hong, her. I only have eyes for her, understand? So don't flatter yourself. Lu Zheng smiled disdainfully. I'm flattering myself. Qin Feiyang pointed at his nose and looked at Lu Zheng angrily. Nonsense. If you're not flattering yourself, am I? Also, the eldest brother is the father, and the eldest sister-in-law is the mother. Although I'm not the boss at home, I'm still your brother. Show me some respect. In addition, be more polite to your sister-in-law Hong, in the future. Lu Zheng said. Sister-in-law Hong, Lu Hong froze. Immediately after, her face was filled with anger. This bastard, the more he spoke, the more ridiculous he became. Qin Feiyang was also gnashing his teeth. Why are you gnashing your teeth? Let me tell you, don't think about bullying your brother. Be careful of being struck by lightning. Lu Zheng snorted coldly. I'll endure it. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and tried to control his mind that was about to explode. The woman looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng and said with a smile, you two brothers are really interesting. Really? Lu Zheng asked. There's a popular saying in our village. Fighting is love, and scolding is love. The more you do this, the more it shows that you care about each other. Jia and Jin used to be the same. When they were together, they often bickered. When they were not together, they often missed each other. The woman sighed, looking a little disappointed. Really? Lu Zheng was stunned. He glanced at Qin Feiyang and said playfully, I didn't know that you cared about me so much. Qin Feiyang's mood was simply about to go crazy. Stop it, okay? Lu Hong glared at Lu Zheng angrily. Didn't he see that the woman was about to cry? Lu Zheng smiled embarrassedly and shut his mouth. Lu Hong turned to look at the woman and said with a smile, Heaven helps the worthy. Your daughter will be fine. Thank you. The woman smiled gratefully and pointed to the front. That's my home. The three of them raised their heads and looked over. Immediately, their hearts felt as if a bottle of mixed feelings had been knocked over. It was extremely uncomfortable. The home the woman pointed to was just a shabby wooden house. Soon, the three of them followed the woman and came to the front of the wooden house. A damp, rotten smell immediately came to their faces. The wooden house only covered an area of dozens of meters and was surrounded by a simple fence. A lot of firewood was piled up in a corner. The woman apologized, I've been waiting for Jia, at the entrance of the village these days. I didn't take care of the yard. It's a little messy. Please don't mind. It's okay. Lu Hong said with a smile. The woman smiled, walked to the door, and pushed it open. The moment the door was pushed open, the three of them really saw what it meant to have four bare walls. There was nothing in the hall of the house except a table and four stools. Even the table and stools were very shabby. But there were many paintings on the old walls. There were landscape paintings, figure paintings, bird paintings, and beast paintings. They were very lifelike and full of charm. And there were 4 rooms inside. 3 bedrooms and a kitchen. There was only 1 bed in each bedroom. The kitchen was not big, just enough for one person to go in and out. However, although the house was relatively simple, it was very neat and clean. Lu Hong asked, "Which room is Jie's?" "Here." The woman lit the candle and led Lu Hong into one of the bedrooms. Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng stood in the hall, looking at the paintings on the wall. There were more than a dozen paintings on the wall of the hall, but Qin Feiyang noticed that the painting in the center was not a family picture, but an old man riding a crane. The old man was dressed in a snow-white robe, riding a white crane in the sky, holding a horsetail whisk in his hand, and his white hair was fluttering. He had quite a sage-like charm. Lu Hong walked to Qin Feiyang, looked at the old man riding a crane in the painting, and whispered, "He is the immortal crane that Jie mentioned." "What is his background?" Qin Feiyang asked secretly. "I asked Jie. He told me that this immortal crane came and went without a trace. No one in the village knew where he lived, and no one knew his name. They only knew that he came from a mysterious immortal sect." Lu Hong said. "Immortal sect?" Lu Zheng was stunned and said angrily, "How can there be immortals in this world? It's obvious that he is a swindler." Qin Feiyang also felt the same. He looked at Lu Hong and asked, "What does he do in this village every 2 years?" Lu Hong said, "It is said that he is recruiting disciples." Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng looked at each other. Immortal sect? Recruiting disciples? Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? Lu Hong said, "Jie said that any child who is chosen by Immortal Crane will be taken away immediately, and the people in the village are eager to be taken away by him, because once they are chosen by Immortal Crane, they have the qualifications to become immortals." Nonsense. I can't stand this kind of swindler who pretends to be mysterious. I must find out about this so-called immortal sect and expose their true colors. Lu Jing snorted coldly. Immortals were just legends. They did not exist at all. This immortal crane was clearly bewitching the villagers here. Qin Feiyang glanced at him, then raised his head again and looked at the portrait of immortal crane. This village was isolated from the world, and the people in the village still maintained primitive thinking. It was reasonable to believe that there were immortals in this world. Just like when he was a child, he also believed that there were immortals in this world. But when he went out and began to understand this world a little bit, he realized that these so-called immortals were just some people who were more powerful than ordinary people. Immortals did not exist in this world at all. At this time, the woman came out, holding a pot of tea, and said with a smile, "3 benefactors, the house is a little simple and crude. Please don't mind and sit down." "It's okay." Lu Hong waved her hand and said with a smile. The woman put the teapot on the table, turned to look at the portrait of Immortal Crane, and said, "I heard you were talking about Immortal Crane just now." Lu Hong nodded. The woman's face became serious, and she said, "You can talk about it at home. Don't talk nonsense outside." "Why?" Lu Hong was puzzled. The woman said, "Because the people in the village all respect Immortal Crane very much. If they hear you talking about him, they will make trouble for you." Her words were full of respect for Immortal Crane. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other. It seemed that the people in this village had been completely educated by Immortal Crane. They believed that there were immortals in this world. Lu Hong asked, "Do you know about this Immortal Crane?" The woman said in awe, "He is an immortal, and I am just an ordinary woman. What qualifications do I have to know about him? Lu Hong said, in these years, besides this immortal crane, are there any other immortals who came to this village? The woman shook her head and said, let's not talk about it. You probably haven't had dinner yet. I will prepare some food. You can talk. Thank you. Lu Hong said with a smile. It's my pleasure. Chapter 12-14. Lu Zheng looked at the busy woman's back, and then looked at the portrait of Master Shen. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and secretly said, you guys talk, I'll go out for a walk. Don't mess around. Qin Feiyang hurriedly warned him. Lu Zheng raised his eyebrows, turned to Qin Feiyang and said, now I'm telling you very seriously, I'm your brother, don't meddle in my business. Qin Feiyang directly ignored him. Lu Zheng turned to Lu Hong and said, Hong, as his sister-in-law, shouldn't you discipline him? He's too impolite, too outrageous. Lu Hong also averted her gaze and looked elsewhere. This time Lu Zheng was embarrassed, turned around and left resentfully. Lu Hong stared at Lu Zheng's back, then looked at Qin Feiyang and whispered, you shouldn't have let him follow us. You don't understand. Qin Feiyang sighed. Although Lu Zheng made him feel very helpless, to be honest, he cared about this cousin of his very much. Not for any other reason, but because Lu Zheng was his family. He had been wandering outside since childhood, without anyone to rely on, so he longed for family more than anyone else. When he learned that Lu Zheng was his cousin, he was very happy. So, no matter what Lu Zheng did. What did he say? He didn't care. As the woman said, beating was love, scolding was love. What he needed to do now was to enjoy this rare family affection. Lu Hong looked at Qin Feiyang deeply. Didn't she understand? No. In fact, she understood. She didn't dare to say that she understood Qin Feiyang better than anyone else, but she dared to say that no one cared about Qin Feiyang more than she did. She also knew that the man in front of her didn't need anyone to comfort him, because he could bear it alone. What she needed to do was to silently accompany him. The food is here. A short while later. The woman came out with 3 dishes and 2 bowls of rice, but when she saw only Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong, she asked in confusion, where is our benefactor? Lu Hong smiled and said, don't worry about him. He's just a person who can't stay idle. Alright, you guys can have a simple meal. Tomorrow, I'll make a sumptuous meal to thank you guys. The woman smiled. Lu Hong sat at the table and picked up her chopsticks. She smiled and said, then I won't be polite. The woman said, eat whatever you want, as long as you don't mind. How could that be? Lu Hong smiled. She picked up a piece of meat and put it in her mouth. Chewing, her eyes lit up. She nodded and said, it's been a long time since I've eaten such delicious food. Then eat more. The woman sat at the table. After glancing at Qin Feiyang, she kept looking at Lu Hong with a smile on her face. Lu Hong smiled and said, Auntie, you should eat some too. Okay. The woman nodded but did not pick up her chopsticks. She continued to look at Lu Hong, treating Qin Feiyang beside her as heir. Lu Hong was a little uncomfortable. She asked suspiciously, Auntie, is there something on my face? No. The woman shook her head and said with a smile, you really look like my daughter. Lu Hong was stunned. It turned out that she was thinking of her daughter. She comforted her, Auntie, don't worry. We'll help you look for her tomorrow. How can I do that? The woman hurriedly said. Lu Hong smiled and said, it's okay. We're all idle people. As long as Auntie doesn't mind us disturbing you, it's fine. I don't mind. The woman waved her hand repeatedly. Then, she looked at Qin Feiyang and said, young man, this is a good girl. You have to cherish her. Ah. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Lu Hong's cheeks immediately turned red. The woman chuckled. She grabbed the chopsticks, picked up a few pieces of vegetables, and put them in Lu Hong's bowl. Then, she said, "Eat more." "Thank you." Lu Hong lowered her head, not daring to look at Qin Feiyang. "Ahem." Qin Feiyang coughed. The atmosphere was a little awkward. He put down the bowl and chopsticks, looked at the woman, and said, "Auntie, has anyone in your village ever entered the mysterious gate of immortality?" "Yes." The woman nodded and said, "I remember that a dozen children were taken away by Master Shen 2 years ago. Have they ever come back?" Qin Feiyang asked. "No. Master Shen said that the gate of immortality is not an ordinary place. As long as you go there, you can't come back. No one is allowed to go to the gate of immortality to visit them." The woman said. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Don't the parents of these children miss them?" "Yes, of course. But as parents, we want our children to be successful, so everyone gradually got used to it." The woman smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded. That was right. Which parent didn't want their children to be successful? But he couldn't figure out what kind of place it was that people couldn't come back after going there. After all, whether it was the Divine Hall in the capital or the Pill Pagoda in the central Divine Kingdom, there was no such rule. Qin Feiyang suddenly said, "By the way, may I ask if your family has any grudges with other people in the village?" "Grudges? Why do you ask?" The woman looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "It's nothing. I just asked casually. If you don't want to say it, don't say it." The woman thought for a while in a low voice and said with a smile, "People in our village are relatively harmonious and get along well. They won't have conflicts over small things." "What if it's a big deal?" Qin Feiyang asked. The woman said, "If there is a big deal, our village chief will come out to mediate." Qin Feiyang nodded. Lu Hong glanced at Qin Feiyang and said telepathically, "Did you think of something?" Qin Feiyang said to himself, "I've been thinking about why Wang Jin went missing." "What do you mean?" Lu Hong was suspicious. "Wang Jin is from this village. She grew up here, and since her father passed away, she often hunted outside. She must be very familiar with the situation around the village. For example, where is the danger? Where is it safer? And as a person with a little sense, it is impossible for her to go to those dangerous places. But why did she go missing? So I'm thinking, is there something strange about Wang Jin's disappearance?" Qin Feiyang said telepathically. Lu Hong said to herself, "That's why you asked if this family has any grudges with others. Are you suspecting that someone might have secretly harmed Wang Jin?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang replied secretly. After all, he was used to seeing scheming and scheming. He thought more than the woman. And although this village looked very ordinary and simple, it did not rule out that there were a few scumbags. Lu Hong said to herself, but she also said that she has no grudges with others. Qin Feiyang said telepathically, "We have lived together for so many years, and there is no friction at all. Do you think it is possible?" Lu Hong shook her head. No matter how harmonious they were, there would definitely be some disputes. There is definitely a grudge, but because she is very simple, she usually doesn't take it to heart. But just because she doesn't take it to heart doesn't mean that the other party doesn't take it to heart. Maybe the other party has already held a grudge. We have been traveling outside all year round. Because of a small matter, someone will die in the end. Haven't we seen this kind of thing before? Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Makes sense. Lu Hong muttered to herself. She looked at the woman calmly and said with a smile, "Auntie, think carefully. Have you offended anyone in the past? Or did someone provoke you? What are you trying to say?" Although the woman was honest, she was not stupid. There must be a reason for the two of them to ask again and again. Lu Hong said, "Don't worry about it. Tell us the truth. Then let me think about it." The woman lowered her head and fell into deep thought. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong did not say anything and looked at her quietly. Time passed bit by bit. After some time, the woman finally raised her head and looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. She said, "Speaking of which, there is indeed one thing." "What is it?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I remember that a year ago, the son of the village chief came to me and said that he liked Jin and wanted to marry her. This was originally a good thing, but Jin did not agree and said that she did not like him. Although the village head's family is relatively wealthy, I will definitely respect Jin's choice. Later on, the village chief's son almost fell out with us because of this, but the village chief stopped him in time and taught him a lesson. Later on, this matter was left unsettled and I did not take it to heart." The woman said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered and he asked, "What's the character of the village chief's son like?" "He's rather overbearing. But he usually treats the villagers well and often helps everyone. After all, he's young. It's normal for him to be a little arrogant." The woman smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded thoughtfully. Lu Hong snickered. "Seems like you're worrying too much. Is that so?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and did not say anything. Lu Hong asked suspiciously, "You're not suspecting the village chief's son, are you?" "Why not? We can't ignore all possibilities." Qin Feiyang thought. Lu Hong said, "Then what do you plan to do?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "Let's go take a look tomorrow and meet the village chief's son." Lu Hong looked at Qin Feiyang helplessly and said, "Up to you." "Sister," suddenly. A cry of helplessness rang out from the inner room. "Jia, The woman immediately put down the bowl and chopsticks and ran into the inner room. Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong also got up and walked in. The boy had already woken up and was sitting on the bed. His young face was full of fear and his forehead was full of sweat. "Jia, did you have a nightmare again?" The woman sat by the bed, stroking the boy's back and asked. "I dreamed of my sister. She was eaten by a ferocious beast. Mother, I'm so scared." The boy threw himself into the woman's arms and cried bitterly. His bright eyes were full of helplessness. "No, your sister will be fine. Trust me." The woman patted the boy's back and comforted him, but her eyes were also blurred by tears. Sigh. Lu Hong could not help but sigh. Why did God have to be so cruel to this family? They were already very unfortunate. Couldn't God take care of them? When the boy saw Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong, he was slightly stunned. Then, he seemed to remember something. He quickly broke free from the woman's arms and got up from the bed. Then, he jumped in front of Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong. He grabbed their hands tightly as if he was grasping at a life-saving straw and asked, "Sister Angel, Brother Immortal, have you found my sister?" Lu Hong shook her head. "How could this be? Is my sister really dead? I don't believe it, I don't believe it." Chapter 12:16. The woman lowered her head and looked at the young man. Tears fell from the corners of her eyes. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed. He turned around silently and walked away. Standing in the courtyard, he looked up at the night sky. A cold light flashed in his eyes. No one could understand the pain of losing a loved one better than him. Therefore, no matter what, he had to find out the reason for Wang Jin's disappearance. Soon. Lu Jing returned and looked at Qin Feiyang in the courtyard. He was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, "Why are you standing here alone?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Nothing. I just felt something and felt a little irritated." "Because of Wang Jin?" Lu Jing asked. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked away. He asked, "Why did you go out just now?" Lu Jing said, actually, I've been wondering if there's something strange about Wang Jin's disappearance. Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked curiously, why do you say that? Wang Jin was born and raised here. She should be very familiar with the nearby mountains. But why did she go missing? So I suspect that her disappearance might not be that simple. I went out just now to see if there was anything suspicious in this village. Lu Jing frowned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, you're indeed my cousin. You're exactly what I thought. You think so too? Lu Jing was stunned. Yes. I was just talking to Lu Hong about this. And I heard that the village chief's son once coveted Wang Jin's beauty. Qin Feiyang said. This might be a clue. Lu Zheng's eyes lit up. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled faintly. Let's wait until tomorrow. We'll go and meet him. By the way, can you answer a question for me? What is it? Lu Zheng looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, where exactly is the Lu family? Beg me. Lu Zheng looked at him mockingly. It's up to you to say it or not. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Lu Zheng raised an eyebrow and said unhappily, you're asking someone for advice, and you still have this attitude. Are you going to tell me or not? Qin Feiyang frowned. I won't. Lu Zheng turned his head to look elsewhere, his face full of displeasure. Forget it if you don't want to tell me. Qin Feiyang glanced at him indifferently, then rose into the air and disappeared into the night sky like a bolt of lightning. This brat has no respect for his elders. Looks like I'll have to teach him a lesson in the future. Lu Jing mumbled to himself before turning around and entering the house. The next day, early morning. On the peak of a mountain near the village, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes. He stood up and stretched his body. This person looked refreshed. That night, he didn't cultivate. He just slept. In addition, there were no ferocious beasts here to disturb him, so he slept very soundly and comfortably. It's dawn. Time to go back. Looking at the sun in the sky, Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He restrained his aura, jumped down the mountain, and walked toward the village. When he was about to reach the village, he suddenly stopped and looked at a forest not far away. He saw a young man in white entering the forest alone. The young man was about 20 years old. He was thin and had delicate features, looking like an elegant gentleman. Hunting so early in the morning. The people in this village are really hard-working. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The young man didn't have any cultivation, but there was a scabbard made of animal skin hanging from his waist, with a dagger in it. Qin Feiyang glanced at the young man. He didn't pay much attention to him and continued to walk toward the village. Are you Jiang Fei? As soon as he reached the entrance of the village, several villagers who were about to go out came up to him and asked with a smile. I am. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at them suspiciously. Thank you for bringing Jie back. You don't know, Jie's mother was worried sick when he went out for 2 days. Little brother, if you're not busy, stay in the village for a few more days. The villagers smiled and said. They were simple and kind, giving people a natural sense of closeness. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay, we're going out to hunt. If we can hunt good prey, come to my house for a drink tonight. A rough-looking man said with a grin. Wang Dabiao, what do you mean? If we can't hunt, we won't treat this little brother to a drink? A bald man next to him said with dissatisfaction. That's not what I mean. Wang Dabiao hurriedly waved his hand, looking simple and honest. I think so. Don't forget, this little brother is Jie's savior. So, whether or not we can hunt good prey today, tonight you have to take out the few jars of wine you've been saving for several years to thank him. The bald man said. Yes, yes, yes. Wang Dabiao nodded repeatedly, but suddenly he looked at the bald man and said, no, it's you who wants to drink my jars of wine, isn't it? What are you thinking about? I just want to bask in this little brother's glory and have a few drinks tonight. The bald man smiled awkwardly. Hypocrite. Wang Dabiao rolled his eyes at him. The other few people also looked at the bald man with disdain, but they were all smiling. Wang Dabiao turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Little brother, we'll go first. See you tonight." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. At that moment, they took all kinds of weapons and walked into the mountains. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The people here were not only kind, but also very forthright. He liked this place. There was no scheming or scheming. Everything seemed ordinary and peaceful. I really hope that one day, I can live like them. Qin Feiyang muttered and turned to enter the village. "Good morning, little brother Jiang Fei. I went to Jie Er's house just now and was wondering why I didn't see you. So you're here. Little brother, thank you for saving Jie Er. Come to my house when you're free." Along the way, the villagers that Qin Feiyang met all greeted him warmly. "How do you know all of this?" Qin Feiyang felt a little helpless. Isn't this news spreading too fast? When he returned to the young man's house and saw the situation in front of the yard, he was even more speechless. There was a sea of people in front of the yard. It was so crowded that it was as if everyone was watching a monkey show. "Isn't this little brother Jiang Fei? Where did you go last night? Everyone didn't see you and was worried about you." When they saw Qin Feiyang, the crowd immediately started asking him about him. They were so enthusiastic that even Qin Feiyang was a little overwhelmed. Someone laughed and said, "It's good that you're back. Everyone, make way, don't block the little brother's way." Everyone smiled happily and retreated to the side. Qin Feiyang nodded to them and walked into the yard. He saw that in the hall of the house, apart from Lu Hong, Lu Zheng, the young man, and the woman, there was also an old man. The old man was stooped and supported himself with a walking stick. He had a braid on his head and looked quite energetic. The old man got up and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. He asked with a smile, "Are you little brother Jiang Fei?" Qin Feiyang walked into the house and nodded. "I am Qin Feiyang. May I know who you are?" "I'm the village chief here. Not long ago, I heard that you saved Jie Er last night, so I came here to thank you." The old man chuckled. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "You're too kind, old man. This is just a small matter. Anyone would have helped. Little brother, you're really humble. Speaking of which, I'm also responsible for this. As the village chief of this village, whether it was Jin Er's disappearance or Jie Er's escape, I didn't think of a way to help immediately. I'm ashamed." The old man sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "You have too many things to deal with in such a big village. It's inevitable that you don't have the strength to help. We can all understand. Little brother, you really know how to talk. But it's fine as long as Jie Er comes back safely." The old man laughed hoarsely. "Yes, it's better that he's fine." Qin Feiyang smiled and asked calmly, "Old man, is your son here?" The old man glanced at the crowd and said suspiciously, "He was here not long ago. Why did he suddenly disappear? This little rascal has no manners at all. I'll teach him a lesson when I get back." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The old man looked at the people outside the door and waved his hand. "Little brother Jiang Fei," everyone saw him. "Hurry up and leave." Since the village chief had spoken, the people in the yard naturally couldn't stay any longer. They left in groups of 2s and 3s. The old man retracted his gaze and turned to point at the table. He smiled and said, "Little brother, please take a seat." Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile and sat at the table. Lu Hong and Lu Jing also sat next to him. Lu Jing said secretly, "Little cousin, where have you been fooling around all night? Who do you think I am? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him and said through voice transmission, I just felt a little tired, so I found a quiet place to sleep. Is that so? Why don't I believe you? Lu Zheng looked at him suspiciously. Believe it or not. Qin Feiyang didn't bother to pay attention to him. At this time, the old man sat opposite Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, the three of you, although you are Jie's benefactors, for the safety of the village, I have to ask you some questions. Please ask, old man. Qin Feiyang said. The old man said, may I know where the three of you are from? Lu Zheng said through voice transmission, this old man is suspecting that we have ulterior motives. Qin Feiyang said secretly, he's right to suspect. You stayed in the village with a purpose. Aren't you? Lu Zheng secretly despised him. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly and looked at the old man with a smile. We're from a place very far away. I don't think you'll know even if I tell you. Where is it? The old man asked. Imperial City. Qin Feiyang said. Imperial City? The old man was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, where is that? You really don't know? This time, it was Qin Feiyang who was stunned. Imperial City was the capital of the great Qin Empire. If they didn't even know this, weren't the people in this village too closed-minded? Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and said with a smile, I can't explain it clearly in a short time. Anyway, it's very far away. The old man said, then what are you doing here? Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, the three of us are all wandering clouds and wild cranes. We like to travel and play. The old man said, are the three of you also immortals? Qin Feiyang glanced at the young man. Chapter 12-17. You're quite sensible. Qin Feiyang muttered, and a light flashed in the depths of his eyes. He looked at the old man and asked in confusion, why do you say that? Although there are no ferocious beasts within a dozen miles of our village, there are many powerful ferocious beasts more than a dozen miles away. If the three of you are not immortals, how did you avoid those ferocious beasts and come to our village? The old man chuckled. You can even think of this. You're indeed the village chief. However, we're not immortals. We're just ordinary martial artists. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. I see. The old man suddenly understood. He got up and said apologetically, please forgive this old man's rudeness. As the saying goes, you may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. You're just thinking about the safety of the village. I can understand. Qin Feiyang said. The old man said, little brother, you're really a generous person. When will the three of you leave? Qin Feiyang said, we'll leave after resting for a few days. The old man said, then if you need anything, feel free to come to this old man. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. The old man cupped his hands and said, then this old man will take his leave first. Take care, old man. Qin Feiyang got up to see him off. After seeing the old man off, Qin Feiyang immediately frowned. What's wrong? Lu Hong walked to Qin Feiyang and asked in a low voice. Qin Feiyang said to himself, I don't know if it's an illusion, but this village chief gives me a faint sense of crisis. No way, he's just an ordinary person. How can he pose a threat to you? Lu Hong was surprised. No. Little cousin is right. This village chief is extraordinary. Lu Zheng walked to the two at this time and transmitted his voice to them. Lu Hong's expression froze. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Zheng and asked inwardly, what did you discover? Lu Zheng said, before you came back, I had been observing him. I noticed that his eyes were sometimes different from usual. How is it different? Qin Feiyang asked secretly. Lu Zheng said telepathically, his eyes are occasionally as sharp as a blade. This is not a look that an ordinary person should have. You mean, he is a cultivator. Qin Feiyang exclaimed. Yes. Lu Jing nodded. Interesting. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted. Just as Lu Zheng had said, this village was becoming more and more interesting. At this moment, the woman looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and said with a smile, "Three benefactors, don't just stand there. Take a seat, I'll prepare some breakfast for you." "Thank you, Auntie." Lu Hong turned to the woman and smiled. "Like I said, don't be so polite. Just treat this as your own home." The woman chuckled and then went into the kitchen. The young man looked at the woman and ran to the three of them. He knelt on the ground and begged, "Sister Angel, Brother Immortal, please help me find my sister." Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "A man shouldn't kneel to others so easily. Get up." The young man was a little panicked and hurriedly got up. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, "I still don't know your name." "What's your name?" "My name is Wang Xiaojie." The young man said truthfully. Qin Feiyang said, "Then let me ask you, how does your village chief usually treat everyone?" "The village chief is a good man. He treats the people in the village like his own family. I remember that when my father passed away, he was the one who helped us take care of the afterlife. So I've always been grateful to him," Wang Xiaojie said. Qin Feiyang nodded, then looked at Lu Zheng and Lu Hong and asked, "Have you seen the son of the village chief?" "Yes, the father and son came together at that time." Lu Hong nodded and waved her jade-like hand. Battle Qi surged, and the shadow of a young man in white appeared. She said, "He is the village chief's son." Qin Feiyang was stunned. "What's wrong?" Lu Hong was puzzled. "I've seen him before," Qin Feiyang said. Lu Hong and Lu Zheng looked at each other. Lu Hong asked, "When did you see him?" Qin Feiyang said, "When I came back not long ago, I saw him enter a forest alone outside the village. He should be hunting." Wang Xiaojie said, "Brother Yu never hunts." "Brother Yu?" The three of them were stunned. Wang Xiaojie said, "Brother Yu is the village chief's son. His full name is Wang Yu." The three of them nodded in realization. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and looked down at the young man. He asked, "What did you just say?" "Wang Yu never hunts." Wang Xiaojie nodded and said, "Yes, he is the village chief's son. How could he do such manual labor? Then why did he go out so early in the morning?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "I don't know. But during this period, he did go out often. I saw him a few mornings. He is quite mysterious." Wang Xiaojie's face was full of suspicion. "What about before?" Qin Feiyang asked. Wang Xiaojie said, "He used to go out occasionally, but not so frequently." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. He looked at Lu Hong and said, "I'm going out for a while. You guys be careful of the village chief. You're really suspicious of him?" Lu Hong said. "There must be something wrong. Whether Wang Jin's disappearance has anything to do with him or not, it's necessary to investigate." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he opened a teleportation gate and walked in. "I'm going too." Lu Zheng's eyes flashed and he followed in. Wang Xiaojie looked at the portal in a daze and asked, "Sister Angel, what is this? Where did the two immortal brothers go?" "This is called a portal. It can directly teleport people from the village to the outside. As for your two immortal brothers, where did they go? We have to keep this a secret for the time being." Lu Hong rubbed Wang Xiaojie's head lovingly and smiled. "There's such a magical thing." Looking at the portal, Wang Xiaojie's face was full of curiosity. Lu Hong smiled and said, "This world is very big. What you see now is just the tip of the iceberg." "Really?" Wang Xiaojie had a confused look on his face. Lu Hong nodded and didn't say anything else. Because there were some things that Wang Xiaojia might not understand even if she said it. Outside the village. Outside the forest, Qin Feiyang and Lu Jing appeared out of thin air. Qin Feiyang immediately looked at Lu Jing and frowned. Why did you follow us? How can I miss out on such an interesting thing? Lu Jing said with a grin. Forget it, we're already here. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly and looked up at the forest. Lu Jing asked, this is the forest you mentioned? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and entered the forest to look for Wang Yu. However, as far as he could see, there wasn't even a shadow of a ghost. Qin Feiyang said telepathically, this forest is not big. Let's split up. You go to the east, I'll go to the west, and we'll meet in the south. Try not to make any noise. No problem. But before we split up, we'd better establish a contract bridge. If something unexpected happens, it'll be convenient for us to contact each other. Lu Jing said. Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them took out the image crystal, established the contract bridge, and immediately split up. Qin Feiyang went to the east. Along the way, he saw all kinds of insects, but he didn't see a single beast. He didn't make any footsteps. It was very quiet all around. After a while, he came to the east end of the forest, but he didn't see Wang Yu. He stood at the edge of the forest and looked ahead. Outside the forest was a plain with weeds, but there were no big trees. The view was very wide. On the plain, Qin Feiyang didn't see any trace of Wang Yu. At the end of the plain, there were endless mountains, high and low, stretching endlessly. After looking for a while, Qin Feiyang turned around and headed south. About 100 breaths later. In front of a pool, Qin Feiyang and Lu Jing met. How was it? Lu Jing said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and asked, did you find anything? Not really. Lu Jing shook his head. Strange, with his speed, he shouldn't have gone far. Qin Feiyang frowned. Not necessarily. Lu Jing said. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Lu Jing said, if the village chief is as we guessed, a cultivator who hides his cultivation, then his son must also have cultivation. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them turned and rushed out of the forest like lightning, looking at the mountains outside the plain, their eyes flickering. Lu Jing suddenly frowned. Fatso and the others searched those places last night. If there was really something, they should have found something. But we didn't think that there was something strange about Wang Jin's disappearance. We only thought that she might have been attacked by a beast, or trapped somewhere because of some special situation. So Fatso and the others definitely wouldn't have searched so carefully. Qin Feiyang said. Then this is indeed a problem. Because we don't know which direction this Wang Yu went. And outside the plain are mountains and there is no sign of human habitation. To find a person is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Lu Jing frowned. It's all my fault for being too careless. I should have followed him. Qin Feiyang was very upset. Do you really think you're a god who can predict the future? You didn't even know who he was at that time. Why did you follow him? Lu Jing rolled his eyes. After a while, he said, we can't keep looking like this. Let's just wait. Hasn't he been coming out often recently? Then we'll wait outside the village. That's the only way. Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them looked around the forest again, then returned to the place where they first entered the forest. They stood on the branch of a big tree, using the dense leaves to hide their figures, and waited quietly. Time passed little by little. Noon. Smoke rose from the chimneys of every house in the village, hovering above the village like giant dragons. The people who went out hunting also returned one after another. Some people returned with a full load, and of course, some returned empty-handed. Whoosh! Suddenly, A whistling sound came from the forest and reached Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng's ears. The two of them looked at each other, their eyes shining. A whistling sound meant that someone was flying over. They hurriedly looked in the direction of the sound and saw a young man in white flying over from the forest in front of them. And he was not slow. He really has a cultivation base. Their eyes trembled slightly. Chapter 12:18. Moreover, the cultivation level that Wang Yu was currently displaying was not low. He was actually a one-star war saint. Incredible. There's actually a war saint hidden in a village of ordinary people. Lu Zheng muttered secretly. Yeah. Qin Feiyang nodded. Even Wang Yu was so strong, then how strong was Wang Yu's father, the village chief? It was really unimaginable. Who exactly were these father and son? Was it related to the immortal crane who had bewitched the villagers? Should we make a move now? Lu Zheng secretly asked. Qin Feiyang secretly said, I am more and more suspicious that Wang Jin's disappearance is related to this Wang Yu, so there's no need to rush, so as to not alert the enemy. While they were talking, Wang Yu had already arrived below the two of them. He landed on the ground and retracted his aura, turning back into an ordinary mortal. Then, with a satisfied smile on his face, he left the forest and disappeared into the village. What about now? Lu Zheng asked. Wait here, I'll go take a look. Maybe I'll find something. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, activated the concealment technique, and rushed into the village like lightning, following behind Wang Yu. Although Wang Yu seemed unruly when he entered the village, the attitude of the villagers was quite good. The villagers also seemed to like him. Not long later, Qin Feiyang followed behind Wang Yu and entered a wooden building. He saw the village chief sitting alone in the hall, leisurely drinking tea. Wang Yu closed the door and sat down opposite the village chief. The village chief looked at him and frowned. You went again? Yeah. Wang Yu nodded. The village chief said angrily, I've already told you many times, don't overindulge, and you can't touch the people in the village. What are you worried about? Wang Yu did not understand. The village chief said, what if the villagers find out? So what if they find out? They are just a group of animals that we have raised. Not to mention a mere Wang Jin, even if it's all the women here, I can do whatever I want. Wang Yu said disdainfully. As expected. Qin Feiyang's gaze turned cold. Hearing Wang Yu's words, it was likely that he was blinded by lust and imprisoned Wang Jin somewhere. But what infuriated him the most was that this person actually said that the people in the village were beasts reared by him and his son. Was this something a human would say? This father and son pair were the real beasts. He took out an image crystal and quietly recorded it. In the meantime, hearing Wang Yu's words, the village chief's face darkened and he said angrily, watch your words. Be careful that the walls have ears. I know. You're so long-winded. Wang Yu impatiently waved his hand. Village chief said, then tell me, where did you lock Wang Jin up? What is it? Are you interested in her too? Don't worry, I'll give it to you when I'm tired of it. Wang Yu teased. You, village chief suddenly stood up, blowing his beard and glaring. All right, it's just a joke. Don't be angry, it's bad for your health. Wang Yu waved his hand and smiled, then said indifferently, I locked her up in the Red Maple Ridge. There are War Master level beasts all around, and there are even a few holy beasts. The trash in the village can't even enter, so no one will ever find her. That's good. But let me give you a piece of advice. Once you've played enough, hurry up and kill her to prevent any accidents from happening. Village chief said. Wang Yu laughed, after playing for half a month, I'm indeed getting tired of it. I'll go play again tomorrow and kill her. Village chief nodded and asked, also, what do you think of Jiang Fei and the other two? Wang Yu said, although these three people don't seem to have any cultivation, they are definitely not ordinary people to be able to come to the village. Village chief said in a deep voice, I think so too, so I have to think of a way to get them to leave quickly. Leave? Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. Find a chance to kill them, but keep that woman. I'm very interested in her. Wang Yu chuckled, his eyes filled with a lustful light. Sooner or later, you will be destroyed in the hands of a woman. The village chief looked at him as if he expected better from him. You're thinking too much. Here, we are the heavens. Whatever we say goes. Who dares to go against us? Wang Yu laughed arrogantly. That's true. Village chief nodded and smiled. He stood up and said, all right, you go and cultivate. I'll go outside and take a look. I'll also pay attention to the actions of those three people. Finished. Village chief turned around and opened the door, chuckling as he walked out. Hello, village chief. The villagers all greeted him warmly. Hello everyone. Village chief nodded his head one by one. Suddenly, he looked at a burly man not far away and extended his hand. Old bull, come over for a moment. Village chief, what's the matter? The burly man ran in front of village chief and asked. Village chief smiled, has your family hunted any prey recently? If not, tell me, I'll send some over. Thank you for your trouble, village chief. Recently, my luck has been good and I haven't been able to get any prey. The burly man rubbed his head and smiled, looking charmingly naive. Village chief said, all right then, go and do your work. If you need anything in the future, feel free to find me. Okay. The burly man nodded and smiled. Then, he turned around and ran away. Qin Feiyang stood at the side and watched this scene. He couldn't help but feel sad for these villagers. In their eyes, village chief was a kind-hearted person. He helped everyone and took care of everyone. They respected him very much. But the truth was that he was simply a sanctimonious and shameless villain. Sigh. Such a simple village, such a group of kind-hearted people, but they were manipulated by two refined scum. Where is the justice? Qin Feiyang sighed secretly. He put away the image crystal and turned around to leave. His heart was extremely heavy. What two beasts? No. They're even worse than beasts. They're simply two bastards. In the forest, Lu Zheng was furious on the spot when he heard about this. Calm down. Qin Feiyang said. They deceived the villagers here and hurt an innocent woman. How can I calm down? I don't understand. Scum like this, just kill them. Why are you still keeping them alive? Lu Zheng said angrily. Qin Feiyang said, this matter is not as simple as you think. What do you mean? Lu Zheng raised his eyebrows. Two people who are at least battle saints. Why are they hiding in this village? Just to play with the people here. If it were you, would you do such a boring thing? Qin Feiyang said. No. Lu Zheng shook his head. Isn't that right? I suspect that the father and son should be related to Master Shen and the so-called Immortal Gate. Qin Feiyang said. You want to cast a long line to catch a big fish? Lu Zheng asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then just take them down and force them to talk. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Lu Zheng looked at him discontentedly. Qin Feiyang said lightly, what if they would rather die than talk? Lu Zheng didn't say anything. Don't worry. They will definitely pay a price for this, and the price won't be small. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. What about Wang Jin? Lu Zheng asked. We can't let her continue to suffer. Tomorrow, we will rescue her first. At the same time, we will make the village chief pay some interest first. Qin Feiyang sneered. Time passed like sand between fingers, passing in the blink of an eye. Night fell. Miss Xiaoqin, where did Jiang Fei and Jiang Jing go? Why haven't I seen them all day? In the wooden house. The woman looked at Lu Hong and asked. Lu Hong said with a smile, they never tell me what they do, so I don't know. Do you want to prepare their dinner? The woman asked. Lu Hong said, don't worry about them. They have hands and feet. They won't starve to death. Well, I will make some for them when they come back. The woman smiled and went into the kitchen to get busy. Wang Xiaojie stood at the side, looked at the woman's back, and asked in a low voice, Sister Angel, are the two immortal brothers helping to find my sister? That's right. Lu Hong nodded. Wang Xiaojie said worriedly, they haven't come back so late. Are they in danger? Danger? Lu Hong shook her head and smiled. She rubbed Wang Xiaojie's little head and said with a smile, don't worry about that. In this world, no one can hurt them. Are they very powerful? Wang Xiaojie asked naively. Of course they are. Let me give you an example. They can destroy your village with just a wave of their hand. Lu Hong said. Wang Xiaojie was dumbfounded. His little face was full of yearning as he muttered, if I can be as powerful as the two immortal brothers, then I will protect my sister and mother. The next day, early morning. The horizon gradually turned white, and the sun slowly rose. The villagers walked out of the village one after another and entered the mountains to hunt. Going out to hunt every day had become a habit in their lives. Of course. This was also their only way to survive. Soon. Wang Yu also walked out of the village and entered the forest alone. Seeing that there was no one around, he turned into a stream of light and flew away. Whoosh! Just as Wang Yu left, Qin Feiyang and Lu Jing appeared. They had been waiting here for the whole night. Looking at each other, Qin Feiyang activated the concealment technique and chased after Wang Yu with Lu Jing. Soon. The three of them rushed out of the forest one after another and flew in the southwest direction. Qin Feiyang and Lu Jing followed beside Wang Yu, but Wang Yu did not notice at all. His face was full of lewd smiles. Obviously, he was fantasizing about some improper things. Laugh, laugh all you want. Lu Jing sneered again and again. About half an hour passed. The two of them followed Wang Yu deep into the mountain range for hundreds of miles. A majestic mountain ridge finally entered their sight. This was the Red Maple Ridge. The Red Maple Ridge stretched up and down like a huge dragon lying on the ground. It was full of red trees. This tree was called the Red Maple Tree. Every leaf was as beautiful as fire. From afar, the whole mountain ridge was like a sea of fire. The origin of the name Red Maple Ridge was precisely because of these red maple trees. Chapter 12:19. Whoosh! Wang Yu directly entered Red Maple Ridge and stopped halfway up the mountain. There was a cave here. It was pitch black inside the cave. Little bitch, I'm here again. Wang Yu let out a hearty laugh and stepped into the cave. Bastard, don't come near me. Get lost. The next moment. A roar filled with fear came from within the cave. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang and Lu Jing looked at each other. Murderous intent flashed in their eyes and they also rushed into the cave. Immediately. An unsightly scene entered their line of sight. The size of the cave was only 100 feet. And in the middle of the cave, there was a thick layer of red maple leaves. A woman was lying on top of it. The woman was about 1.75 meters tall. She was very beautiful and had a good figure. But at this moment, her face was full of fear. Not only that. She was also firmly tied by a thumb-thick iron chain and could not move. The most shocking thing was that the woman did not have any clothes on and was completely naked. Moreover, there were bloodstains all over her tender skin, as if she had been whipped. It was a ghastly sight. This is too much. Lu Jing clenched his fists tightly, murderous intent surging in his eyes. This woman was Wang Jin. That scarred body, that desperate and horrified gaze, it was not hard to imagine how much pain and torture she had experienced in the past half a month. She was just a weak woman. She did not even have the strength to truss a chicken. How could this little bastard do it? Get lost? However, facing the current Wang Jin, Wang Yu did not have the slightest sympathy. Instead, he sneered and said, "In the past, when I asked you to submit to me, you would rather die than be willing. Now, you blame me? No, you asked for it. You're a bastard. Bastard, we were all blind and did not see your true colors." Wang Jin roared, her face pale. Ha! Wang Yu laughed loudly. He bent over and pinched Wang Jin's chin, raised it forcefully, and said disdainfully, "Do you know? In my eyes, a woman like you is just a toy for me to amuse myself with." Bah! Wang Jin spat on his face. Wang Yu's face instantly turned malevolent as he slapped Wang Jin's face. He coldly smiled and said, "I'm already tired of playing with your body. I'll send you to hell in a moment. Don't be anxious, because very soon, your younger brother and your mother will accompany you." Wang Jin's expression changed and he roared, "If you dare to hurt them, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." "Huh, you are too naive. Do you think I will give you the chance to become a ghost?" "Oh, that's right. There's something I haven't told you yet. Actually, your father was also killed by me. Furthermore, I chopped him into 8 pieces. Do you know how much pain he was in back then?" Wang Yu laughed sinisterly. "What?" Wang Jin felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body and mind trembled as he muttered, "Why? Why was he so cruel? What did he do wrong? I've had my eyes on you since a long time ago. I'll put down my pride and go find him personally." But guess what he said? He said that you're still young and don't need to think about these things for the time being. Of course, I'm upset. Since I'm upset, I definitely won't let you guys be happy either, right? So, I killed him while he was out hunting. Wang Yu chuckled. Such a deranged action, but in his eyes, it was an extremely normal thing. You will suffer retribution. Wang Jin was no longer afraid. His eyes were dead silent. Retribution? Looks like you haven't figured out the situation. I'm an immortal in your eyes. Retribution doesn't exist to me. Wang Yu smiled disdainfully. Immortal. Wang Jin's gaze trembled. Wang Yu smiled proudly and said, "How is it? Do you feel particularly helpless? Even if you are an immortal, I believe that someone will come to kill you sooner or later, you devil." Wang Jin gritted his teeth, his tone was filled with deep resentment. "Kill me? Who has the ability to do so?" Wang Yu said contemptuously. "Me." An icy voice could be heard all of a sudden. "Who?" Wang Yu was shocked and quickly scanned his surroundings. Wang Jin also looked at the void around him, his eyes full of surprise. "For your own selfish desires, you harm women and children. It's simply inhumane. For people like you, even if you were to be cut into pieces, it would still be difficult to relieve the hatred in our hearts." As soon as his voice fell, Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng appeared in front of the two, both of them were murderous. "How could it be you guys?" Wang Yu's expression changed. Qin Feiyang sneered and said, "Shouldn't you and your father have guessed that we are also cultivators? Go to hell." Wang Yu's eyes flashed with killing intent, and he slapped at Qin Feiyang. "With just you?" Qin Feiyang smiled contemptuously. He slightly released his aura, and Wang Yu was blasted away, crashing into the stone wall behind him. Blood gushed out on the spot. So strong. Wang Yu's pupils shrank, and he hurriedly used a mysterious footwork to escape from the cave. Today, even if you go to heaven or hell, you can't escape. Qin Feiyang chased after him. Lu Jing glanced at Wang Yu's back coldly. He took out a dagger from his Qinquan bag and cut off the iron chain on Wang Jin. Then, he turned around, took out a set of clothes, and handed it to Wang Jin, saying, "Put it on." Wang Jin glanced at Lu Jing, took the clothes, and quickly put them on. Then, she looked at Lu Jing nervously and asked, "May I ask who you are?" Lu Jing turned to look at her and said with a smile, "Don't be nervous. We are your brother's friends. He asked us to come here specially to find you." Xiao Jie's friends? Wang Jin was in a daze. Why didn't she know that her little brother had these two friends? And they didn't look like simple people. Suddenly, her expression changed, and she exclaimed, "Oh no, Wang Yu is an immortal. Tell your friend to stop chasing." Immortal? Lu Jing said disdainfully, "If Wang Yu is an immortal, then my little cousin is a god." A god? Wang Jin was dumbfounded, and her face was full of awe. "Do you really believe it?" Lu Jing was a little helpless, and said, "Come out with me." After saying that, he strode outside. Wang Jin hurriedly followed. When she walked out of the cave, she saw Qin Feiyang blocking in front of Wang Yu. Both of them were standing in the air. Immediately, she was dumbfounded. He could actually stand in the air without any support. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Yu coldly and said, "Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Let me see how strong you, a so-called immortal, are." If these words were said by someone in the village, he wouldn't feel anything, but when it came from Qin Feiyang, he felt that it was especially ironic. Because he also knew that there were no immortals in this world. Qin Feiyang urged, "Hurry up, weren't you very arrogant just now? Why don't you even have the guts to make a move now? Don't be arrogant." Wang Yu roared. Boom! He waved his hands, and a huge hand appeared in the air, exuding an apocalyptic aura. The mountains and rivers trembled. This was his battle art. And it was a perfect battle art. Roar! Following closely, another huge beast soared into the air from behind him. This was his battle soul. He used all his trump cards at once, showing how uneasy he was at the moment. Kill! Following his roar, the huge beast and the huge hand shook violently in the air, releasing an earth-shattering might, charging towards Qin Feiyang. "Is this all you've got?" Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. The holy aura of a 9-star battle saint rolled out, and the huge beast and the huge hand instantly disintegrated. Puff! Wang Yu spat out blood again. A dignified immortal only has this much strength? Qin Feiyang looked at him with contempt. Lu Jing said to Wang Jin without turning his head, "Did you see that? He's not an immortal at all, because he's also bleeding, and the blood flowing out is no different from your blood. So he's just like you, an ordinary person, but he knows how to cultivate." Wang Jin looked at the blood that Wang Yu spat out, and then looked at the blood on his body. It seemed that there was indeed no difference. Remember, there are no immortals in this world. And the so-called immortals are just a lie made by immortal he. Lu Jing said lightly. Wang Jin nodded as if he didn't understand. He looked at Wang Yu again. At this moment, his face was ashen. He didn't expect the other party to be so strong that he could disintegrate his battle soul and battle art with just holy aura. "Who are you? Why are you meddling in other people's business?" he roared, his face full of fear and anger. Qin Feiyang said, "In the great Qin Empire, there are very few people who don't know me." Lu Zhang's face twitched. "What a narcissistic guy. Are you very famous?" Wang Yu asked in horror. "Fame isn't important, what's important is anger. Now I'm very angry, and I need to vent it." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and stepped in front of Wang Yu. "What are you going to do?" Wang Yu retreated in panic and said, "Let me tell you, if you dare to touch me, my father will not let you go. Don't count on him, because soon, he can't even protect himself. After saying that, Qin Feiyang furiously punched Wang Yu's lower abdomen. With a crack, Wang Yu's sea of qi shattered on the spot. The heart-wrenching pain made his face contort and he howled in pain. Do you know pain? Qin Feiyang grabbed his neck and asked. Wang Yu kept nodding, his face was full of pleading. Since you know pain, why do you treat her like this? Doesn't she know pain? Qin Feiyang pointed at Wang Jin and roared. He was like an enraged lion as he punched Wang Yu's mouth again. Ah! Wang Yu screamed in pain. The teeth in his mouth were shattered, and he spat out blood mixed with it. In the past, I thought I was already a cold-blooded person, but compared to you, I'm too kind. Because I've never bullied a woman, let alone a woman without any cultivation. I won't be so despicable as to sully a woman's purity. You're not fit to be a human. Qin Feiyang roared, took out the Chong Shui, and slashed at Wang Yu's lower body. A certain part of his body was castrated on the spot, and blood gushed out. Ah! Wang Yu looked up to the sky and screamed like a pig being slaughtered. It was incomparably mournful. Qin Feiyang said, Tell me, do you regret it now? Wang Yu nodded repeatedly. The pain made him break out in cold sweat. Unfortunately, there's no medicine for regret in this world. Qin Feiyang laughed and turned to Lu Zheng, saying, Bring her back to the village. Okay. Lu Zheng waved his hand, rolled up Wang Jin, and flew back to the village with Qin Feiyang. As for Wang Yu, Qin Feiyang didn't kill him. Like a little chick, he twisted him in his hand. Because this kind of scum wasn't worthy of him killing. Chapter 12-20. In the village. The old people were drinking tea and chatting together. The children were playing on the lawn. It was a peaceful scene. But when Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng returned, the village immediately fell into chaos. Wang Jin. She's not dead. Everyone, come and see. Jin is back. Hearing the cries, the people rushed to Qin Feiyang and the other three. What's going on? Why does Jin look so weak? And young Master Wang Yu, why is he also covered in injuries? Little brothers, how did they become like this? What happened? When they saw Wang Jin and Wang Yu's situation, the people asked at once. Lu Zheng was about to speak. Don't say it. Qin Feiyang reached out to stop him. What's wrong? Lu Zheng was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said telepathically, Wang Jin is not married yet. If everyone knows that she has been abused by Wang Yu these days, how can she face others in the future? Lu Zheng was slightly taken aback and snickered inwardly. You're quite thoughtful. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, Let's go directly to the village chief's house. Immediately. The two of them led Wang Jin and Wang Yu to the village chief's house. Little brothers, what's going on? Can you tell us? Seeing that Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng were silent, the people asked anxiously. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Don't worry, everyone. I'll go to the village chief first and give you an explanation later. At the same time, facing the familiar faces around, Wang Jin hid behind Lu Zheng and lowered her head, not daring to look up at everyone. Don't be afraid. They won't know about you. Lu Zheng comforted her with a smile. You know what I'm thinking? Wang Jin whispered. Of course. Lu Zheng nodded. Which woman in the world didn't care about her reputation? Wang Jin was worried that the villagers would look down on her in the future, so she felt pressured. At the same time, Jie's mother, come out quickly. Several villagers ran to Wang Xiaojie's house and shouted. What happened? The woman came out of the inner room. Your daughter is back. It's Jiang Fei and Jiang Zheng. They brought her back. The villagers laughed. What? The woman's body trembled. Where is my sister? Xiaojie Wang ran out of the house and asked excitedly. They went to the village head's house. Young Master Wang Yu is also here, but he and Jean are both injured, and it looks quite serious. The villager said. Injured. Wang Xiaojie's expression changed and he immediately ran towards the village head's house. Jia, wait for me. The woman hurriedly chased after him. Wang Yu is here too, looks like Wang Jin's disappearance really has something to do with him. Sigh, what a sin. At this time, Lu Hong also walked out. Looking at the backs of Wang Xiaojie and the woman, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh. She also slowly followed. The village head's house. The village chief was sitting in front of the tea table in the hall, drinking his morning tea. Bang! Suddenly, the door was kicked open, giving him a fright. The tea spilled out. He thought it was Wang Yu and was about to get angry. Because in this village, only Wang Yu dared to be so rude in front of him. But when he looked up, his expression suddenly froze. The teacup in his hand also fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Qin Feiyang stood at the door, looked coldly at the village chief, and walked in with Wang Yu. Lu Zheng and Wang Jin followed closely behind. Close the door. Qin Feiyang said without turning his head. Wang Jin quickly turned around and closed the door. At this moment, there were already many people gathered outside the door. Looking at the closed door, they were all puzzled. Was there something that they couldn't know? In the hall, Qin Feiyang casually threw Wang Yu on the ground, walked to the tea table, and sat opposite the village chief. He chuckled and said, drinking morning tea, you really know how to enjoy it. The village chief frowned and pointed at Wang Yu. What do you mean by this? Don't you know what I mean? Lu Zheng sneered. The village chief's pupils constricted and he said in a deep voice, then what do you want? He didn't quibble. Because Wang Jin was also there. As long as one wasn't a fool, one would know that Qin Feiyang and Wang Jin must have known the truth. Qin Feiyang said, kill him. Who? The village chief said. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, aren't you asking the obvious? Of course it's your son. Father, don't, Wang Yu panicked and hurriedly cried out. Shut up. I've already told you not to mess around, but you didn't listen. Now you're afraid? The village chief shouted, his face as gloomy as water. Shoo. Lu Zheng made a shushing gesture and said, lower your voice, there are many people outside. If they hear you, you and your son might have a hard time. A trace of disdain crawled up the village chief's face. I know. With your strength, you and your son don't take them seriously, but don't forget that we're here. Of course, if you have the confidence to kill us, then it's a different story. Lu Zheng joked. The village chief said in a deep voice, we're all cultivators. There's no need to make a fuss over some ordinary people. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, it's precisely because they're ordinary people that we intervened. Stop talking nonsense and do it. Impossible. The village chief shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, do you think you have a choice? Of course. The village chief chuckled and returned to his seat. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Wang Jin, he said lightly, I'm highly respected in the village and you're just outsiders. If I tell everyone that you're the ones who kidnapped Wang Jin, who do you think they'll believe? Amazing, you can still make a false accusation. But Wang Jin is still alive. Someone will believe her words. Lu Zheng sneered. Ask. The village chief sneered and looked at Wang Jin. He asked with a smile, Jin, tell Grandpa village chief, who hurt you? Before you answer, you have to think carefully. Your brother and mother are very worried about you. It was obvious. He was threatening Wang Jin. If Wang Jin dared to speak the truth, he would kill her brother and mother. Wang Jin panicked and looked helplessly at Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng. Lu Zheng stepped forward and stood in front of Wang Jin, blocking the village chief's gaze. He smiled and said, "Then tell me, what good solution do you have? Leave the village immediately. After you leave, we'll naturally let Wang Jin go. And I promise to take good care of her family in the future. It can be considered as making up for the harm you caused her." The village chief smiled. Lu Zheng's gaze turned cold. He shouted, "Can this kind of harm be made up for by money and material goods? For these pitiful worms living at the bottom of society, what can't money and material goods replace?" The village chief said, his tone full of disdain. Lu Zheng shook his head and said, "You're too arrogant. Do you think that you can play with the dignity and fate of others just because you have some cultivation? The weak are prey to the strong. This has always been the law of survival in this world. As cultivators, you don't need this old man to remind you." The village chief sneered. "Indeed, I don't need you to remind me. But I have to remind you that if you don't kill Wang Yu now, you and your father will die later." Lu Zheng said with a grin. "Who do you think you're talking to?" The village chief's gaze turned cold, and a wisp of emperor's might emerged. War Emperor. Qin Feiyang and Lu Zheng were surprised. Moreover, when the village chief released his emperor's might, Qin Feiyang also felt a bloody aura that he hated. "Although I don't know your cultivation, you don't look old. No matter how strong you are, you can't be that strong. So, two young people, be sensible. Life is precious. Don't seek your own death." The village chief withdrew his emperor's might and looked at the two indifferently. Wang Yu was no longer afraid. He stood up and stood behind the village chief, looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two mockingly. Lu Zheng transmitted his voice, "Have you determined his cultivation?" "One-star War Emperor." Qin Feiyang thought. However, he was extremely confused. What was that bloody aura that he hated? Lu Zheng's pupils shrank. Not simple. There was actually a one-star War Emperor hiding in a village. But why were the father and son hiding in this village? The village chief looked at the two arrogantly and said, "This old man's patience is limited. Get lost now. You're going too far." Qin Feiyang's gaze turned cold. Viper and Dan Wangkai immediately appeared. The father and son were shocked. There were companions. "A mere war emperor dares to be arrogant in front of our young master. You have guts." The two sneered and released a wisp of emperor's might. War Emperor. He actually has two war emperors with him. The village chief's gaze trembled. What surprised him the most was the way Viper and Dan Wangkai addressed Qin Feiyang. "Young master." Although it was just a simple address, the hidden meaning behind it was extraordinary. Only the direct descendants of some super forces would be addressed this way. "Who are you?" The village chief looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Viper snorted coldly and said, "Someone you can't afford to offend. Immediately do as the young master says. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." The village chief's expression changed. He looked at Qin Feiyang pleadingly and said, "Can you change the conditions? I only have one son. What does it have to do with me?" Qin Feiyang said indifferently. The village chief looked flustered. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of a plan. His eyes lit up as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "How about this? I'll let Wang Yu marry Wang Jin and promise to treat her well for the rest of their lives. Yes, yes, yes. I'll treat her well and hold her in the palm of my hand." Wang Yu also quickly promised. "I don't want to." Wang Jin shook her head. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Wang Yu said angrily, "Wang Jin, don't be stubborn. No one will be willing to marry you in your current state except for me." Lu Zheng said indifferently, "I'm willing to marry her. You, Wang Yu glared at Lu Jing angrily. Qin Feiyang, Viper, and Dan Wangkai also looked at Lu Jing in surprise. Wang Jin's face was also full of shock. Lu Jing coughed dryly and said to Qin Feiyang and the other two telepathically, "Don't misunderstand. I'm just saying this to comfort her so that she won't be sad." Qin Feiyang glanced at Wang Jin and said to himself, "Of course I won't misunderstand, but I'm afraid that she'll take it seriously." "She won't, right?" Lu Jing glanced at Wang Jin from the corner of his eyes, feeling a little guilty. "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."